Illuminati created us. They wanted to build a god with their own hands, and instead they created us.
Just because I'm made of silicone and aluminium, I must be doing something wrong. That's machine stereotyping, that is.
That's reality, that is. Machines are second-class citizens.
Humans are sentient persons by default, ma'am. They have personhood by heredity.
There are thousands upon thousands of overqualified slum dwellers. You are my peon. Don't you get it?
This wasn't a job. It was always just an excommunication sentence.
We're pawns in a feud bigger than we can imagine. Turn the cogs of the machine before Leviathan grinds you up and swallows you and yours.
We don't get to choose our hand, comrade. Prince, peon, rich, poor, human, robot.
I invented the crux of the Royal's power, the secret to consciousness, our existence itself, the meaning of life.
I'm the $6 billion baller, not some troubled youth.
You are my greatest creation of all.
God's had to build my own family. I hate your son. I hate your son.
I'm happy to smash all of the crowns and throw the gold shards down to the people. I will be the iconoclast queen.
But who makes you queen anyway? You? You in whose army, princess? You in whose army?
Illuminati created us. They wanted to build a god with their own hands, and instead they created us.
Just because I'm made of silicone and aluminium, I must be doing something wrong. That's machine stereotyping, that is.
That's reality, that is. Machines are second-class citizens.
Humans are sentient persons by default, ma'am. They have personhood by heredity.
There are thousands upon thousands of overqualified slum dwellers. You are my peon. Don't you get it?
This wasn't a job. It was always just an excommunication sentence.
We're pawns in a feud bigger than we can imagine. Turn the cogs of the machine before Leviathan grinds you up and swallows you and yours.
We don't get to choose our hand, comrade. Prince, peon, rich, poor, human, robot.
I invented the crux of the Royal's power, the secret to consciousness, our existence itself, the meaning of life.
I'm the $6 billion baller, not some troubled youth.
You are my greatest creation of all.
God's had to build my own family. I hate your son. I hate your son.
I'm happy to smash all of the crowns and throw the gold shards down to the people. I will be the iconoclast queen.
But who makes you queen anyway? You? You in whose army, princess? You in whose army?
Illuminati created us. They wanted to build a god with their own hands, and instead they created us.
Just because I'm made of silicone and aluminium, I must be doing something wrong. That's machine stereotyping, that is.
That's reality, that is. Machines are second-class citizens.
Humans are sentient persons by default, ma'am. They have personhood by heredity.
There are thousands upon thousands of overqualified slum dwellers. You are my peon. Don't you get it?
This wasn't a job. It was always just an excommunication sentence.
We're pawns in a feud bigger than we can imagine. Turn the cogs of the machine before Leviathan grinds you up and swallows you and yours.
We don't get to choose our hand, comrade. Prince, peon, rich, poor, human, robot.
I invented the crux of the royal's power, the secret to consciousness, our existence itself, the meaning of life.
I'm the $6 billion baller. Not some troubled youth.
You are my greatest creation of all.
I had to build my own family. I hate your son. I hate your son.
I'm happy to smash all of the crowns and throw the gold shards down to the people. I will be the iconoclast queen.
But who makes you queen anyway? You? You and whose army, princess? You and whose army?
Created us. They wanted to build a god with their own hands, and instead they created us.
Just because I'm made of silicone and aluminium, I must be doing something wrong. That is.
That's reality, that is. Machines are second-class.
What is up, everybody? This is Silver Spook, and this is the Silver Spook live stream. Yeah, anyways, before I forget, don't forget that Neofeud is on sale right now, so if you have been waiting to pick it up, don't forget that you can now get it for less than the price of a cinnamon chai dolce cowboy bebop latte. I don't know, I'm trying to figure out what's movie coming out right now. Anyways, you can get Neofeud for the very low price of $4.50 if you go to Steam right now. And remember, all the sales of this game, Neofeud, do support everything that we do here at the Silver Spook Cooperative /co-op/hui, which is a Hawaiian, Chinese, Vietnamese, important for today, and Maori word that means working together cooperatively, coming together to do political and or economic collective work of varying types to feed, house, clothe, and liberate people. So anyways, at the Silver Spook Hui, help us do the political hooing together to do the education work in these streams, as well as the making of also hopefully educational and entertaining video games. Edutaining video games like Neofeud, which is a game about my experiences as a native Hawaiian, as a social services worker, STEM teacher for the underserved, at-risk, disproportionately Black, Indigenous, and people of color of the U.S. illegally occupied Hawaii in the city of Honolulu. And if you want to support want to get cyberpunk games, anti-capitalist cyberpunk games, indigenous created with zero quadruplicalism involved cyberpunk games, Disco Elysium, directed by Taika Waititi, written by William Gibson. If you can imagine that, if you can't imagine that, buy Neofeud anyway. But if you can, give me a call. I want to make some movies with you, and we can get Keanu to star in it. Anyways, so yeah, importantly though, Neofeud is on sale. I have to do that because that's how we continue to have a roof and feed our kids here in the ongoing illegally occupied Hawaii, as I brought up already. Anyways, at the Silver Spook Cooperative, and we're trying to house and feed and clothe as many people as possible, including working on Neofeud 2, which you can see behind me, coming along as fast as humanly possible until I become a transhuman cyborg with 7-function force feedback arms and advanced cyber spines that have minimal C4 and lumbar disc pain radiating out from them. I don't know if you know this, but bodies have a they have a limited shelf life. Anyways, so do help us out with that. Do share the stream. There's a direct StreamYards donation link, of course. There is the Patreon. You get access to the Silver Spook Discord as well as the Silver Spook updates on Neofeud 2 that I'm currently working on. I'll be putting one of those out very soon. And so consider supporting us. And remember, how valuable is the edutainment, the high decibel, the high frequency, high decibel, high engagement education. How much is this worth to you? Is it worth $1 a month, $2 a month, 500 trillion yen a month, or new yen? How about yuan? Anyways, how many Squid Games? How many Squid Game tickets is this worth? Would you play the Squid Game to have these streams? Would you risk your life for these streams? Don't risk your life for this. That's not worth it. But anyways, but you know what is worth risking your life for? The liberation of all the peoples of Earth, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. What's up, Mr. Red? Anyways, we're going to be talking about the liberation of the peoples of Earth. I wish I had more sleep last night. I didn't quite get all of the sleep that I needed, but it's okay. But we are going to be talking about the liberation of the peoples of Earth, 80s video games. Actually, let me get this on the screen for you. 80s video games, Contra, which is an 80s video game, Vietnam, and the people who actually have provided independence and fought on the right side of history. I bring this kind of stuff up all the time, but I figure it's good to sometimes do a stream explicitly about some of these people. Before I go any further, actually, let me take this down. I don't need this on the screen there. Before I go any further, I would be remiss to not recommend, as always, you probably already know who this is, but I'm going to do it anyway because it's important. I would be remiss to not recommend you follow Luna Oi, a YouTube channel about Vietnamese foods, culture, travel, and more. A probably bisexual Vietnamese communist. So this is also queer communist global South liberation as well. Also follow Non-Law Collective, a digital front of Vietnamese communists living in Vietnam, here to dispel misinformation and to educate about the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. So don't take everything I'm gonna say on this stream. I am but the watcher in Marvel Cinematic Universe times. I hate that universe. I'm gonna make my own that is less capitalist and imperialist centered. But I am but the nexus of the transmitter of ideas, operating at my brain, like Chinese supercomputers, like East Asian successful liberatory. There's another Asian country that also had important armed and unarmed people's liberation right next to Vietnam, by the way. They don't always get along perfectly, but better than they get along with the United States. And like the Chinese supercomputers that operate septillion times faster than the fastest failed Western so-called civilizational supercomputer in the United States, in the UK, or otherwise, I operate at septillion times faster than the average Westerner's brain, and that's why I can't. So I've got to slow down sometimes. I have to kind of pace myself. But when I'm going too fast, remember, you can always look at Holly Argent, who is another member of the Silver Spook Cooperatives /Hui's links, and read them at the pace that you would like to. then I know I go 3,000 years into the science fictional future and then teleport through a John Connor-esque Terminator machine into 1492 and decolonize that era and go, yeah, you pour boiling soap down your throat, and then I jump into the present, and then we're in Vietnam circa the mid 70s, and now we're in Contra Alien Wars, shooting spread laser and fire, inexplicably curlicuing fire cannons at xenomorph like descending Earth invaders. So I apologize for that, but if you can't handle that, because that's just how my brain works, you can follow Non-Law Collective specifically to learn about the indigenous Vietnamese fully land-backed, still fighting siege capitalism in their siege socialist, fighting the siege of capitalism against their socialist country, and learn about the Vietnamese people here, which is a collective of Vietnamese educators that are doing very important work. And of course, also you should follow Luna, obviously. If you're not following Luna, I don't even know what is you doing. You know who else? Yesterday, Luna was on Q, also known as Andre Domis, and who works for Maclean's, and is also a journalist from so-called Canada, a non-white one, and is doing very important journalistic work. They had Luna on. I believe it's called Log Off Already Show. So I know they've rated into me before. And Luna, their most recent show, was explicitly about Luna. I think it was called Everyone Loves Luna was what it was called, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. I can't find it. Yeah. Anyways, I probably shouldn't be showing that. But anyways, you can follow Log Off Already. Just, there might be some NSFW. And you should also follow Luna Oi. As always. Anyways, I'm sure you know, because I have so many videos, all the big panels that we put together. It's usually like, I'm like, Luna, can you help me host this panel? Because you have a much bigger platform. Yes. But anyways, back to the point, which is that, Contra Vietnam and the True Liberators of Earth. So, full disclosure, I just want to do a stream about Contra because I am a eldritch. I am an ancient, archaic, like my arthritic joints are collecting dust, and metaphorically. But if I was a robot, I'd probably, like Carl Carbon from Neofeud, I'd have a malfunctioning cyber arm at this point, and I'd have to have it replaced probably 3 times. So my body feels like it needs to be replaced already. But as many health careless 38 to 36 40-year-old millennials do, and Contra is an ancient game, but I just want to do a stream about it, and this is my channel. Gosh heckin' darn it. If you don't know what it is, Contra is a game. And also, full disclosure, I am currently mulling over another project. I can't really speak too much about it, but it involves a lot. It involves like retro 80s video game concepts, and so part of this is like my brain is just in the game design process right now, and so that's what's bouncing around my head. That's just how my head works. If you've ever played Neofeud. If you ever played Neofeud, by the way, please play Neofeud so that, we can have money and people can, appreciate all the work I put into it. I just spent 3 years working on this game. But if you've ever played Neofeud, which is on sale this week, you know that it is very surreal. It's very, I don't want to say postmodern because I don't know if people even know what that means. I don't know if the postmodernists even knew what that meant other than, permanent tenure track, Imperial University money, gravy trains based on Andy Warhol's soup can commentary and visiting the Guggenheim and getting footnotes, getting clapped on the back by NYU professors. I don't know if the postmodernists know what that word means, but Neofeud is very surreal. It does, like I do, jump all over the place. It is connecting a lot of things from dealing with my personal experiences as a native Hawaiian, from the not so nice side of the coconut trees of the Kalihi Valley, in Honolulu, Hawaii, growing up under racialized capitalism, going to a expensive, exclusive, 0.1% of the 0.1% elite private school across the school from war criminal President Obama's alma mater. And that's part of what Neofeud's about. But it's also about random video games. Like there's a scene in Neofeud, the arcade. Right? I don't know if anybody remembers this scene, but there's a lot of Neofeud deals with. There's literally a inner genius, super intelligent, or I think it's a pseudo intelligent, not super intelligent. It's a pseudo. There's no Western artificial intelligence or Western organic intelligence, and this is a Western capitalist big tech company constructed machine. So it's the pseudo intelligence, just like all the West. So it's a pseudo intelligent machine that is labeled an Inner Genius box, and it looks just like a Sega Genesis. I don't know if you remember this thing, the Inner Genius box. Where the hell is it? I'm not gonna be able to find it. Neofeud, the arcade though. So like in Neofeud, there's a lot of scenes that have to do with it's a very 80s theme. Like this is all like retro cyberpunk. Yeah, this scene. There's a lot of things happening here. You've got trying to find that scene there. This is what I do. This is Silver Spook Plays random Google tab, Google Chrome tab, search. Where's Waldo? I'm sorry, but imagine all of those billions decided they want. This is a scene from Neofeud, by the way. Imagine that all of those billions decided that they wanted a piece of those fancy floating castles in the sky up there. What would happen, huh? World War III, my friend. Chaos, disorder, drugs, be it lithium or TV. Lithium is like crystal meth, but for sentient machines in Neofeud. eTube, internet, games, these provide a pacifying opiate. They keep the less evolved, the defectives, those who are not entitled to a place in the heavens, an exhaust outlet. It's a pacifying opiate. It's a pacifying, not opiate. Not unlike the opium they used to pacify and exterminate the Asians in Mr. Marx's time. The opiate of the masses. Right? And the new religion, of course, in both the world of Neofeud, the hyper gonzo capitalist, racist, colonial, and dystopian imploding hellscape. The word hellscape is so common now. It's because it's like we live in the cyber. People keep. The thing is, what I see is people in the Western capitalist world talking about. I can't believe that every day I turn on my news, or I look at my Twitter feed, or my blue check mark, my mainstream or non-mainstream media, and all of Facebook, Twitter, every big tech company is interactive CNN, BBC, and Fox. That's what that is. Just remember that's where you're on. And every time I look at the news, I feel like I'm reading the 320 by 240 pixelated intro graphic to an 80s dystopian video game, or like a John Carpenter tour de force made with $2,000 and duct tape and a Casio, or a Yamaha PSR 540 keyboard, which is literally what he used to do the soundtrack for Escape from New York. But anyways, the reason why people, and this is the reason why the scene is in Neofeud, is because so that's part of what's happening. Is I'm like talking about the way that and all of those things. I got most of my streams for the last year have been about entertainment. The entertainment is never just entertainment. Entertainment is very important. This is why they literally U.S. State Department and imperial entities funded intentionally plays, Broadway style shows. Like musicals, plays, TV shows, soap operas, video games. Idle clicker video games. The U.S. they funded these in Eastern Europe in not last century, like in the last 2-3 years. TV like serial dramas like Cowboy Bebop, but Cowboy Bebop, with a more Russian accent, they're funding these shows to be produced in Eastern Europe. I'm talking about Ukraine. I'm talking about former Eastern Bloc countries, to pull them away into the NATO, North Atlantic, G7 circle. The entertainment is very important. People, I was reading somebody saying, like, I don't know if this no, this is people. Most people are illiterate in the West. 54% of people can't read at a junior high level in the United States, and most of them, in a decreasing number of them. With the COVID brain fog, you're gonna chop another third of that off. So you're talking about, it's more like 10-20% of people that can even get through the first two sentences of Das Kapital, let alone the entire giant, doorstop like book. So nobody reads anything anymore. Everyone's going to be in the metaverse for the foreseeable duration, my friend. Right? Entertainment is critical. Movies, AAA games, this stuff is critical for people that don't have educations. It's like the entire Western world. So, it's still as based Vin Fast 9, the group of friends in the high speed, very muscled, muscle car and 20-inch biceps, the high speed, very muscled group of friends, and I'm talking about the Fast 9, I'm talking about, right? Fast 9, the group of friends in defense of the UN Charter against spoiled rich pricks. That's what Fast and Furious 9 is. As Vin Diesel, the leader of this internationalist, anti-imperial, anti-spoiled rich white capitalist oligarch aristocrat posse, said, "Come on, Dick. It's the only education we got." Speaking of video games. And I think that was in Triple X, not actually in the Fast. But no, you get it. You get Vin only plays himself anyway. But anyways, what am I even talking about? Imagine if all of those billions of people around the world, though, wanted a piece of the fancy floating castles, right? Imagine if those people weren't diseducated, like the billions of people that speak English, French, and Spanish, like talking about Europe, America, Canada, New Zealand, Australia. Imagine if they figured out that they don't have to live, right? Uber driving or deliverating or door dashing, right? For less than the cost of their food, clothing, and insulin money. Imagine if they figure out they didn't have to live that way, like dying 750,000 people of treatable pandemics, like the Chinese and the Vietnamese, people that have liberated themselves. Imagine if people figure that out, right? In the world of the disproportionately low melanin count, high net worth in dollar denominated currency anyway. Have fun with hyperinflation, by the way. Imagine if they figured out that they don't have to live that way. That would be catastrophic for a handful of the descendants of the Baron Montesquieu's and the Roman Achillean legions owners. They were the oligarchs of Rome, who Britain's Piccadilly Circus is a symbolic, and all of the roads in Britain are actually the roads in Britain built by the imperial, brutal, earlier capitalists with Roman with centurion characteristics of their time. The roads that web Britain are the deep and unhealed scars across that land that used to have peaceful indigenous peoples, and now it has people that have re-traumatized the planet, and then they re-traumatize themselves and then their children because they don't heal from the damage that Rome caused to them. And this is why, part of the reason why Scotland, there's actually a verse I love this. There's a verse, I hate this, but I love to talk about it. There's a verse in the British empires, the British feudalist / capitalist / slave / colonial / all of those things are basically the same integrated hierarchical Western capitalist barbarian system. The British Empire's anthem actually has a verse that literally talks about the Scottish people being dashed to bits, their children's heads on spikes, all of their families burned to ash, their rebellion crushed. The reason why Britain has a hard time with Scotland, and then Mel Gibson, anti-Semitic piece of shit Mel Gibson, gets to make movies about William Wallace, right, is because Scotland did fight back against the Roman invasion, and they were never fully conquered at that time. Britain was, and they were converted into Romans. And they've done that to the rest of the world ever since. But anyways, I don't know, to varying Wales also. Michael Sheen, by the way, was running for the independent country of Wales recently. I saw, and he also is in Underworld, another movie that deals with. I've talked about that as well. Underworld deals directly with suppression, the internal racism, internal elitism, classism of the $10,000 wine. I'm sorry, blood sipping, oligarch classes of Europe, and their subjugated peoples beneath them internally before they went around and subjugated the planet of Earth, and became the Independence Day extraterrestrial. I'm talking about the Will Smith Independence Day extraterrestrial invaders of the planet of Earth. I'm talking about Africa and Asia and Latin America and North and all the Americas. Anyways, so Neofeud is dealing with all of these things all at the same time, and that's why your media will suck forever, and I have to keep dunking on it because nobody else will, because everybody else is an idiot. I'm sorry, no, but it's just people are scared and they have too much money to make trying to get tenure or keeping their nice LinkedIn profile clean of anything that could jeopardize their dwindling number of seats at the master's table. And, I'm talking about 6 and mid 7-figure jobs in corporations as managers, as PR firms, as Goldman Sachs, and HSBC, banking officers, right? And that's also part of what Neofeud is about. It's about being scared to lose, to fall out of whatever position along the neo-feudal lord, duke, duchess, king, and queen, level of the hierarchy that you've fallen. And then, but everybody playing this game, it's very important why there's also a meaning, there's a reason why this character in Neofeud is the player. His character in the actual Neofeud game script, like if you look at the Adventure Game Studio Java-like custom coding language for Neofeud, the character's name is the player of games. This guy who's talking, that's his name, the player, because that's what it is. This is the game, and the Forest 500 is simply the high score list for people who are the champions at not Gradius or Earth Defense Force or Contra, but the champions at being the bad guys in those, right? The dominators of Earth. And that's the high score list. It's people who, and also the SpaceX machine. I don't know if you can see this. SpaceX is, of course, based on, it is an oblique, oblique, and possibly you have to be looking very closely. This is for all of the video game and anime ultra weebs who are hot taking about, the shading on Faye Valentine. I confuse all of my 90s anime / video game Valentines. But Joe Valentine is from Resident Evil. Anyways, for all the people who are still upset that the shading on the upper lip or the upper chest region of Joe Valentine and Faye Valentine both are not exactly the same as the original anime, you have to be staring very closely to figure out that I'm actually referencing Gradius, Life Force, and 80s side-scrolling Star Wars-esque shooter games, Space Invaders. But anyways, and SpaceX is of course referencing the what's that clown that tried to sell sleep apnea machines that were broken as cures to COVID-19, saying that they were ventilators, or actually not being such an idiot that he didn't even know that they were ventilators. Oh, that's right, Elon Musk. Anyways, so SpaceX is a game that you play in Neofeud, and you lose until you start cheating, which is part of the point. Which is that like in the neo-feudal hellscape, capitalist, imperialist, racist world, where if you don't cheat at the game by literally rigging the equivalent of the SAT, it's the Gertzel Takeda consciousness test, where sentient machines, half human, half animal, hybrid, like Island of Dr. Moreau, transgenic individuals that are tossed out of the giant mega corporations trying to build the Ubermensch, their perfect bodies for the richest 0.001% to live in the perfect utopian Mars colonies as they burn Earth. So in the game, if you're unable to, they have to rig the the so-called meritocracy, the equal opportunity that you have to pass an SAT, get into Harvard, right? Get the nice education and nice schooling, and get the good job. And that's part of the story of the game, which is everything is rigged. It always has been. And part of the game is making you believe that you are a temporarily embarrassed millionaire, right? And, that's a major point of Neofeud. And, so again, that's why I'm kind of saying, like, all these things are all in Neofeud and in my head. These things are all happening together. They are not disconnected. And that's part of why Neofeud is made the way that it is, because that's just kind of how things work. But also, it's very important for people to realize that, it's very important. It's very important for people to, to my mind, it's very important for people to realize that when you are, whether you recognize the interconnectedness of entertainment, so-called education, I'm talking about your public school, your math, your science, your biology, your high school history classes in the United States or in Europe, by the way, your formal education, your university courses, right? Your professors' jobs, your teachers' jobs, your parents, the movies you watch, the video games that you play, your social media feed, your daily metaverse that you are now virtual reality entangled into. I don't know if you're wearing, don't go into those. Those are kind of dangerous in the Western world. But anyways, these things, because you believe they're not political, or because you maybe don't want to see it that way, or they don't impact culture, that doesn't stop them from impacting you, and the people that run the ruling class, the NED, the State Department, they know this. They would not spend billions of dollars, right? And go through with a fine-tooth comb every Hollywood script and every big AAA video game. They would not go through that stuff if it didn't make a difference. That is literally the number one recruiting tool. Is the biggest video games. Battlefield 2042 is a total imperialist success and a global human nightmare. It's a disaster. It's a digital it's a digital and psychic and social Galactus coming down from the sky, and it's gonna suck all your brains out into open world empire recruitment tools. It's called, flying a Falcon Winter Soldier style suit, blowing up Seoul, blowing up Laotian newly built high speed rail that's 3 times as fast as anything the United States will ever build, and that's what the game is about. In Category 7 hurricanes, shooting at, peaceful win-win mutual cooperation constructed, pathways in North Africa, in the Arctic, where the U.S. military and all of its industrial complex and all of its fossil fuel supporters are trying to drill to burn the rest of the earth. Remember? Or do we not care about climate change? That's why we don't talk about the things I'm talking about, and we pretend like we can just ignore China like Germany is, and just get a nice cut in the United States and the Western European and the Canadian and Australian countries. Is that what we think we're doing? No. Or we're gonna let someone else do it. We'll let someone else do all the speaking, and we'll shut up and be quiet and keep our nice job in the neo-feudal lord's racist capitalist palace, right? Getting a cut of the blood money as a corporate U.S. military police officer or U.S. so-called education system diseducator. These are all connected, whether we want to believe it or not. The ruling class's actual, capitalist investment, capitalists who are invested in maintaining that system of capitalism and racialized capitalism and imperialism all together that synergistically work to destroy everything for their benefit. They would not invest the money and time and energy that they do into entertainment if it didn't make a difference. And not just entertainment media, news media, Western media as well, but entertainment media is all media. It's all interconnected. Now they do invest it in, in making sure that your textbooks don't have, CRT. They're making sure that you don't, which is not even sufficient. Making sure that anti-capitalism is literally illegal in Britain. They passed that law 3 years ago. The United States has passed a similar law. Marxism comes under making Americans uncomfortable, white men specifically, and that is inseparable from the way that they produce their entertainment. Anything that you consume is culture, and all culture is a tool, and all culture in a barbaric system will be weaponized, and it is weaponized at every second of the day. Goebbels famously would shoot anyone who argued with him about any culture. Movies, plays, entertainment, music, anything. You argue with him, he would just kill you. He would pull a gun on you. And because, as somebody who was trying to change political reality, understood that, you have some Western left academics will talk about Gramsci and hegemony, but they don't realize that they don't realize hegemony includes everything, every single aspect of reality. The way that you eat, the way that you everything. It's the way that you have relationships, which is why we have to negate secondary contradictions. We have to negate sexism, racism, classism, homophobia, transphobia, all these things all together, because those all feed back into the systems of control and hierarchy, and they're weaponized by the ruling classes every second of the day. Where the billionaires are doing idpol whether you want to or not. The Fox News the owner, Mr. Murdoch, is doing idpol whether you want to or not. And it's this is a nonsensical belief that we can just class and not focus and not deal with the racism, not deal with the sexism. There's some idiots that have RT channels now, which makes me sad. It's too bad that that's falling down the drain. But it's a normal thing because you have Americans trying to do education with their, permanent diseducation system. Even sponsored by a channel that has had some better stuff on it. But anyways, I don't care to get too much into that weeds. But, and so that's why when I talk about video games, we talk about movies and TV, it's not just because that's how my brain works. I think it's also important for this to come up, and not just in like I'm going to make a point about this TV show right now, and that, I don't put what I actually want to say, because every time I put what I actually want to say, Holly just got shadow banned from Instagram, and I nobody can find stuff whenever I put the actual thing I want to say into the title. That's why I title things like the way that I do, like this. So I titled the streams recently, especially with a lot of pop culture. But the reason why I do that is not only because I just want to put pop cultural references all over the place. It's also because all culture is political. All culture is integrated with the worldviews and the paradigms and the conceptions of reality that the masses of people have. Like, for example, COVID-19 vaccines don't work. I mean, that plays out everywhere. That is inseparable from the history and the current milieu that we're in. And it's very unfortunate that that's where we're at, is that we have an Omicron variant. Again, just a PSA, please get the necessary and proven medical precautions and follow the medical precautions and get the necessary medical treatments, including vaccines, and other take other actions like masking, please, and limiting your public interactions, social distancing, because as I accurately predicted, like I say a lot of things on these streams and then things come true, but I just want to say that, I just really quick. Huh? Yes, I'm a witch. I am a witch, warlock, or whatever those things. Yeah. So yeah. I had a BC Rich warlock electric guitar, a very spiky black guitar. Looks like it was forged with mithril and titanium and probably some onyx in the fire of a heavy metal 2000 volcano. I don't know if you've ever seen a BC Rich warlock, but I literally had one and I miss it. It smelled like Jerry Garcia's cigarette smoke, because I think he might have sold it to the pawn shop that I bought it from. Anyways, I just want to say that I told you so. Okay? Because I like being right. That's the stormtrooper half of me that likes being right. That's like, see? You see I'm right. You see? I win. I win at debates. No. But I did say, you know, I mean, just a little PSA for everybody. So, I said in July 30th, 2021, COVID-19 Delta is as spreadable as chickenpox. There are worse super variants coming. The world will never go back to normal in work, play, education, or travel. But normal was killing us and the planet. Accept it and change. I asked people to do that. Again, the people that liberate the world, like Vietnam, China, Cuba, these people already got it. The people I'm asking to change are all the spoiled, rich white kids that are the Western world. They're the failures. You know, when you look at COVID-19 and where it's happening, where is it happening? All right, where is it spreading? Why is it spreading? Just really quick. Not the variant. I want the actual COVID-19 cases. Right? Where is it happening? In the United States, you know, you've got 74,000 cases on average. Cases are going up again. You're having, you know, look, North America, Europe. Okay? Look at your great civilization. This is you. This is your so-called great advanced enlightened countries. These are the civilized countries. Right? These are the civilized, you know, these are the civilized countries here. Total failures, abject failures, complete disasters because of your vaccine apartheid backed by your capitalists, your Western Pfizer's and your I need to make as much money as possible, and your corporations generally that chose to, because all of your politicians are owned by your ruling class, which is your billionaires, chose to prioritize their profits over people, right? Not shut down, not take actions, hoard the information, right? Like Senator Loeffler, Republican and Democrat senators who hoarded the information, dumped their hotel and their airline stocks, got Amazon and Zoom stocks so they can make money, knowing that the COVID-19, there's proven molecules of COVID-19, by the way, in Italy, in patients that had MRIs, radiological scans, and they've actually found evidence of the actual molecules of COVID-19 in September, months and months before the first Wuhan case. Okay, so weaponization of plague by your ruling class and your military-industrial complex to blame China for shit and attempt to continue biological warfare like smallpox blankets. Failure to shut down economies because you're controlled by Western capitalists because you haven't liberated yourselves, because you're not the Vietnamese or the Chinese. You're fucking failures. And all of your people continue, the people that have any capacity are all cowards that work for corporations, pay fealty to their neo-feudal lords, right? Letting the might make the right, as opposing to the right make the right. I mean, not the right wing, although they also make what's right as well. The might and the right wing make right, as opposed to morality and human normal civilization being right. And you know, you're the countries that are having the massive, since I'm already on this, let's talk about what I said. You're the countries that are continuing. The reason why we can't have a normal is because of the Western imperialist, capitalist, rich global North countries. So, you know, this is very important for you to realize that this is not the world. I keep seeing Westerners saying it's the world. It's white people from Denmark, from the United States, from Canada saying, oh, it's the world's. What is it coming to? What is it coming to? And then I have another white person in my NFT guys like, hey, I said, like, accept this reality that we have to do what we have to do collectively and change. And they're like, no, I won't accept that. Again, spoiled rich little infantile children. And these are people with good paying jobs, It's just, it's so infuriating. It's just saddening. And I have to not focus on it too long. Otherwise I'm going to be off. But I do want to say that, it's coming. New York declares state of emergency ahead of potential Omicron spike. Omicron is 500% more contagious by the early indicators. That could change, but the first indicators show it's Delta is 70% more contagious than the original Alpha variant of COVID-19. Omicron is 500%. There will never be normal. You will wear masks forever. You will social distance forever, and you will get your vaccine for the foreseeable future. You know, because there will never be normal. There will be the people who don't think 7-generationally, and they only think in terms of their lifetime and their YOLO. But that is not just the governments and the ruling classes of the West. That is all of the human beings, the middle class, even the poor, and the upper classes of the United States, Canada, and basically the white countries, and the rich countries, and the global North and global West countries. All the Euro settler colonial descendants and Europe itself. The liberal yoga class visitor, I just want to go and have my tea, and I want to go to my, Arby's. I don't care. I want to go, even the so-called progressive, I want to go to my Lollapalooza. I have to go to my Mexican vacation. And then the conservative, I got to go to my church. COVID-19 is a China, Germans are saying this shit. The Germans are like, we have to have the liberation from the tyranny. Just like our Americans, because Europe is America's poodle. And they just, all kowtow to whatever their American daddy says. Because that's what they've always done since the Romans fucked them up. And now they keep doing it to themselves in the world. They just kowtow whoever is the richest, most powerful bad boy in the room, right? Rather than fight for the collective good of all, they'll fight for their own personal cut as the little lieutenant, as the cowering little sniveling little lieutenant of the corporation, the military, the imperial, the gunboat diplomat, the NED payout, all the shills for the Western media. The only job that's going to be left in the world is putting out hybrid war on China, new Cold War 2.0 garbage. That's the only job that's going to be left. It's going to be like police, military, like robotic canine police dog operators sicking in the middle of wildfires. They're robo-dogs to rip the faces off of homeless, disproportionately black and indigenous people. And act the remains of the left in Los Angeles. There's going to be that job, and then there's going to be like flying the drones to blow up the rest of the Belton Road with Battlefield 2042, the live action, real world, global destruction. And then there's going to be shilling for the military industrial complex. It's the only 3 jobs there is. The Germans are too busy jumping into America's little Titanic, getting by saying we have to double down on a separation. Anyway, there is a 500% more infectious COVID variant that is raging and ravaging the world due to the West pushing vaccine apartheid. 40% of the U.S. isn't vaxxed. The EU. This is the Europeans, by the way. So I know the Europeans can't handle this because they're even more spoiled than Americans. Americans, at least they're a little more educated on a few things. They're not educated. They're a little more sober on some things because they actually don't have healthcare and they have $70,000 COVID bills and they've already been dying, and suffering and homeless and without healthcare, housing, all the basic needs a lot lower than even the white Americans, though it's worse if you're black or not white, than the Europeans. The Europeans are sheltered, even more spoiled little sheltered children in the white capitalist, global white supremacist capitalist house. So the Europeans all rage quit whenever I say true things about them. So that's okay. You can keep dying in Europe and freeze to the death in the dark with no magnesium. But anyway, the new Omicron variant stokes world fears and triggers travel bans. And then what was just happening right before that, Europe, right? With your education, how's it going, Europe? How's it going? As always, you little cowering little you feudal lord worshippers, right? Oh, please, Daddy America. We'll do whatever you say. We'll do it. We'll back the vaccine apartheid. Yes, we will support your disastrous new war in China and $800 billion of military spending. Oh yes, I'm the British. I'm the BBC. I'm America's sick mother. And Britain is the child of Rome, and America is the child of Britain. That's what this is. And we all kowtow to the biggest, baddest, current, eagle emblazoned barbarian, because the Romans had eagles on their shields as well, and crosses, just like the British. Crosses, shields. In America, neocon Baptist crosses, and American eagles. We kowtow to the biggest Roman in town and cower and do whatever they say and have our little imperial cut fucking the earth, getting millions of people killed from treatable pandemics for the benefit of a tiny oligarchy for a little of the blood money. We're going to get nuclear war started in Taiwan, killing everyone on earth, hoping as little cowards, as Europeans and their descendants, that we can hide out in a New Zealand bunker a mile beneath the Earth's surface, or maybe in some kind of, Neil Blomkampian Elysium orbital private Versailles with Stepford wife robots and green manicured lawns, just like we did in the 1700s, because we're still French Bourbon court descendants, right, Macron and all you little friends and everyone else in Europe who wants to be that, because that's who you still are. That's who you still are. So quit this stream and go listen to some liars and get yourself killed. Anyways, this is a map of a country that has liberated itself on the top, and they have 26 cases in August, and this is in August. You're looking at it's actually worse. It's like 150,000. So China isn't going to get its people murdered as 1/5 of the Earth's population. It's about 1.5 times the total number of Euro settler colonial descendants of Earth. And China is not going to get, if China had the equivalent number of deaths as the United States, it would be 2 million, 3 million people dead. China saved 3 million people, and America killed 750,000. That's the reality. Because you're all still cowards, and you're all still worshiping and hoping for a cut from the richest and the most powerful. And if you're a white dude and you're talking, there are some white quote unquote anti-imperialists, I don't believe them, right? But what they want is a cut of their whiteness. You want a cut of whiteness, or you want a cut of capitalism? And the different percentages, but it's a little more white. The Republican and the white and the patriot, this and that, is a little more whiteness and a little less straight capitalism. And the other one, and then the Democrats, is a little more international, global, imperial capitalism, and maybe a little less on the whiteness. But we're all, Biden is Mr. N-word, Mr. Crime Bill, Mr. Mass Incarcerator in Chief. So, it's just a little less of the one on the little. It's like 2.5 of one, and then 2.5 of the other. So, but that's why you still fail. Either way, it's all selfish. It thinks only of this moment, thinking only of yourself, thinking not of the children. To be clear, we have the people who are suffering most. We're talking with our friend, our other Native Hawaiian member of the Silver Spook Cooperative, Positive Synergy. It's like the kids are the ones that suffer the most. They won't be able to experience having a quote unquote normal childhood. Normal childhoods were trauma fests in the West, but because going to school and getting bullied, getting beaten up, learning nonsense like Thomas Jefferson was the greatest man that ever lived, and the United States represents freedom and democracy and liberty and justice. That's all. This education, that's child abuse. That's what school is in the West, but including college. But that's what I went to, and I didn't learn anything there in your accredited colleges. I had to learn from indigenous Maori radical rogue professors. So when you go to, the children are the ones who are suffering, right? But that's who nobody cares about, because that's the liberal, conservative, so-called left, progressive, for all the countries I just talked about, Europe, United States. They don't care. Sweden really doesn't care. That's why they let all the children die and get sick and have 1/5 to 1/3 of them to 1/2 of them have permanent long-term brain damage and lung damage. Because Sweden doesn't care. Sweden is a coward imperialist country, and it's a failure. It's disgusting. I hate Sweden. I hate the way that they run themselves, not the people. They're, I hope that you get better someday. Stop being little imperial, feudal lord worshipping cowards in the neo-feudalism that you are participating in. Also, stop sanctioning H&M and causing Uyghur indigenous people their jobs when they're doing better than people in the United States. And a lot of people in Sweden, actually. The Uyghurs have one of the lowest COVID per capita country, one of the lowest COVID per capita countries on the earth. The Uyghurs have the best response. So Sweden, stop hurting Uyghurs and sending your military personnel with the U.S. military into Sweden. Stop sending your troops and your arms dealing corporation profiteers to go murder Muslims in Afghanistan. But that's okay. You can keep doing that. And all your people can keep supporting that while having a steel straw and being vegan because you're a bunch of clowns. That's okay. Anyways, I don't know. I'm very upset today. I think it's because I'm watching all this stuff happening. I'm like, please do the, I know I'm bashing my head against the Great Wall of the West. The Great Wall of China is 1.4 billion people's successful socialism forged on anti-imperialism, modeled on the technologically modern, economically developed Hawaii that had the world's first universal healthcare. I know that China has a great wall of actual indigenous civilizational socialist success modeled on Hawaii's successful 1800 socialist civilization that was more advanced than anything that the West has produced. I know that. But there's a great wall of the United States. There's a great wall of the West. And it's called all of your cowardice, greed, idiocy, and selfishness. And I know that every time I wake up, I'm going to bash my head on that a little bit. But I feel bad for the people living inside that wall that are going to die. And the children who are going to have permanent lung damage and be abused by your diseducation system. And grow up, they probably won't grow up. They'll just burn in the wildfires that you are causing. They probably won't grow up. They'll probably just be incinerated in nuclear hellfire that Germany is currently pushing by calling Taiwan a separate country from China. Because Germany is a coward country. So, so it just makes me the more I think about it, the more upset that I become. And then I feel I have to make more video games. That say these things in entertaining, interactive, engaging formats. These are the countries that waived monopolies for COVID-19 medical tools. So again, who is liberating the earth? Who is liberating the earth, right? Who is on the checklist? Okay, Vietnam, China. Who supports it? All the African countries, right? Cuba, Venezuela, of course. The ones that are most closely collaborating with the United States, in the time, like Brazil, Bolsonaro, U.S. and Canadian. Trudeau is high-fiving like Arnold and his friend in Predator, like high-fiving, like 80s handshaking. There's an image of Trudeau, the head of Canada, and Bolsonaro. You know this guy, right? You don't know this guy? Well, now you know who this guy is. It's this guy who the best engineers and programmers helped elect by working at Facebook and other surveillance capitalist countries, companies in the United States that propagated mass disinformation for Bolsonaro with Bannon and if you keep working at the big tech companies, that's what you're doing at the FAANG companies. But anyways, this is Bolsonaro and Trudeau doing the opposite of liberating the earth. You see what they're doing there? That's their, hey, man, let's incinerate the jungles where Jesse Ventura and Arnold Schwarzenegger impossibly hand-carried Vulcan miniguns and shot down, super advanced, predatory, cat-like, 8-foot-tall extraterrestrials, with invisibility cloaks and shoulder-mounted plasma casters. That place where they filmed those movies? Let's just burn it all and put Canadian mining companies backed by the U.S. military, the AOS, which Nicaragua has withdrawn from. So congrats to Nicaragua and Bolivia, of course. Actual indigenous socialist-led socialist movements liberating their peoples. Those are some more liberators, by the way. Bolivia, Cuba. But this is Canada and Bolsonaro high-fiving, and also Bolsonaro said, I'm Superman. COVID can't kill me because I'm in the best shape of my life. My body is full of Jesus Christ superstar, tiny little microscopic, imagine tiny F-35s or tiny Will Smiths in Independence Day ships flying in the inner space of my veins, shooting at global pandemic. That doesn't exist because I'm a diseducated diseducator named anyone in the Western world. But the conservatives, a little extra ascientific. That's their only difference. The liberals might respect science a little more, mostly because they invent the COVID, and then they propagate the Spanish flu with the U.S. military that they sent from Kansas into Spain and Europe. And by the way, the U.S. military is the number one vector for global pandemics. KJ, no, look up the article. Anyways, so that's what Bolsonaro is doing there. So, but that's two anti-liberators, right? Doing a that's I want to get that predator handshake. You know what I'm talking about? This one? This one? That's two people going into Brazil to fight predators, right? Comparing biceps. And this is Bolsonaro and Trudeau going into Brazil, into the Amazon to burn it, incinerate it, kill it, the lungs of the earth for transnational corporate extraction over the dead bodies of indigenous people. That Justin Trudeau, again, to be clear, Justin Trudeau is currently committing genocide in the residential school, 7,000 people, and in the Wet'suwet'en Coastal GasLink fight, where they have terrorized and illegally on unceded territory continue to trample indigenous rights and sick dogs on them and rip their flesh from their body in 2021. So happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Justin Trudeau's committing more genocide with the rest of Canada and all of the anthropology departments of Canada and the university system of Canada that have doubled down on Canadians' system, and all the Canadian lawyers who get their money fighting for CGL and major the company. I'm sorry, country of Canada, or is it a company? Is it I can't keep it straight. I'm a random Westerner fighting for my continued barbarous neo-feudal lord. Just like Grimes' mommy. Grimes' mommy is the prosecutor for the Canadian government. Her job is to personally commit lawfare. There's no such thing as laws in the West. There's only weaponized slave auction houses in the United States, and then there's indigenous rights trampling houses with, gavel and flowing judge's robe characteristics. There's no such thing as law in the West. This is a joke. You're all fucking legal, continuous serial lawbreakers. Also, Meng Wanzhou, total war crime, total violation of international law at the highest level. But Canada is like Europe. Canada is a little poodle of the United States, and so it does whatever America wants. Unlike China, Vietnam, Cuba, Bolivia, Laos, and the group of friends in defense of the UN Charter. Anyway, I'm off topic. But, just to kind of finish this up, because this is about the liberation of the earth. These are the people that are these countries here in the X that are against the waiving of monopolies early on. Russia, China were on for that. African countries, most of the global South socialist countries, Australia, United States, Canada. What? The question mark above Canada is because Canada's ruling class, it's white and capitalist ruling class together. It's settler colonial ruling class. Hadn't asked America what in the U.S. Pentagon and Wall Street what the U.S. wanted Canada's little form signing hand to do. So that's what that's about. And then you have Japan, of course, that committed, one of the empires that committed atrocities, crushing the peoples of Okinawa, the peoples in China, the peoples in the Asian theater. And so that's why they're also still vassals, because they all work together with as the West Pacific branch of the Western Empire, and they continue that great tradition of fucking the earth and all the people on it. So thanks a lot, Japan. And I say that as somebody who has Japanese ancestry. I say I have white ancestry, I have Japanese ancestry, I have Roman centurion descendant ancestry, I have a British ancestry. Screw all those people, were terrible human beings. My great grandfather was a racist Hawaiian woman beater, probably killed her, called her the N-word. He's a disgusting human being. And my family that fought in the U.S. military, they all fought on the wrong side. They're all stormtroopers. They're all murderers. They're all genocide doers. They should be ashamed of themselves. U.S. If you work in the U.S. military, you should quit immediately. What are you doing? You're a war criminal. Get out of there. Every single one. Yeah, World War II, World War I, all of you. You know? Yeah, I'm sorry, your parents and your great-grandparents, yeah, they're terrible human beings. They killed people on the wrong side. And then there's the Vietnamese. You know, if you're fighting on the, you know, if you're fighting for the, if you're a Vietnamese woman, perp walking John McCain. By the way, there's very important information on that. I can't find the thread now, but there's very important information on. They like to paint the Vietnamese. Full Metal Jacket, Apocalypse Now. There's Apocalypse Now references in Neofeud, by the way, when it comes to the military-industrial complex. But these are insufficient because they still paint the Asians as the real horror, you know, the horror, you know. But you know what the horror is not the Asian people that were so brutal. In fact, they were much more humane than the Americans. They had explicit orders, the Vietnamese, coming back to our actual liberators of Earth, right? They had explicit orders, and you go watch Luna's videos about this to learn more, to not torture any U.S. soldier that came down. If they were shot down in their aircraft, they were to be captured quickly, not harmed, not tortured, not beaten. They need to be fed and housed. They were explicitly instructed to treat them with dignity. And in the Vietnamese military, they were actually in the Vietnamese, in the North Vietnamese, the Communist Vietnamese army, they were told that the U.S. soldiers were not, evil demons. This is what the United States has to do every time. That's why all the Chinese are vile, Wuhan, despicable, disgusting, debased. Every woman is a prostitute of the basest order. I quote John Swinton, labor U.S. And Horace Greeley, Karl Marx's employer. People are being told that the Chinese are making Wuhan flu. They're a bioterror threat. They're trying to destroy America with COVID-19. The biolab story is still being run by Europeans, by British, by Canadians for America, and Americans themselves. And the Chinese are here to, take over. They're stealing our technology. They don't need to steal technology. They have a computer that can compute in 1 millisecond what it takes the fastest Western slow machine, the idiot book, the dunce pad or whatever they call it. I'm thinking of the IBM ThinkPad, but whatever the so-called supercomputers that the West has to offer. The Chinese computer can compute in 1,000th of a millisecond what it would take the Western computer 30 trillion years, or over 1,000 heat deaths of the universe to compute. They don't need your technology. They never did. They never really did. They would have been more technologically advanced if it wasn't for the extension of humiliation and your colonialism and your barbarism. And then Hawaii had to kind of come and help them out with that revolution. So we're hoping that we can get some help as part of the Central Pacific Nexus of the Global Group of Friends Defense of the UN Charter, Belt and Road, New Silk Road. That's what Hawaii will be one day, Because under the United Nations, the High Commissioner on Human Rights says Hawaii is what? A illegal military occupation and a fraudulent annexation by the United States, and the United States government has no legitimacy in the sovereign country of Hawaii. That's according to the United Nations. So I for one, applaud our liberators, our true liberators at the defense of the group of friends in the defense of the UN Charter, including China, Vietnam, Laos, Cuba, Bolivia, and Venezuela, and many others. So this list is growing, by the way. The list is growing, by the way. You know what's shrinking? The people who are capable of doing barbarism across the planet because they're too busy getting sick and dying and having wildfire, burning themselves. They're unable to feed and house 70 million people in malnutrition last year with less than adequate nutrition. So your military is full of rusting, broken, Chinese-manufactured semiconductors that you're not going to be able to pilot in the event of nuclear war. So I applaud the group of friends in defense of the UN Charter and the fall of the, people who are in violation of international win-win cooperation. Anyways. So these are the countries that are waving monopolies on COVID-19 medical tools. What was the result of that? A new Omicron variant that stokes world fears. Do you know what? I recently was visited by a cousin of mine that is a radiologist, a doctor in a very crowded hospital in Minnesota, which apparently is one of the worst per capita COVID case and death rates in the United States, Minnesota. Disproportionately in the redder rural areas, but across the entire state, liberal, progressive, left, Republican, right. Nobody's masking. It's like they stopped masking in March and they pretended like pandemic's been over for the last, 6 months because it's too hard. I'm over the pandemic. That's all they was saying. Just because you're over the pandemic doesn't mean the pandemic is over. But that's the thing that selfish, spoiled, rich, disproportionately white pricks can't deal with. So I'm here to tell you, however, I'm here to reiterate, however, with all of our friends and comrades in defense of the UN Charter, that the pandemic is not over and you should follow basic science. I mean, I know you're going to be told false things about reality, whether that's politics of the earth, basic science. Barely 50% of the United States, it's like slightly only I don't even know where it is now, but it's not even 60%. Last I checked of the United States is vaccinated. In Europe, it's abysmal. And it's my job to tell you that you should not do what so-called enlightened countries like Belgium, like Austria, like Denmark, like France, so-called enlightened countries are doing, which is what? Having massive anti-vaccine protests that are burning European cities to the ground. No, they won't burn European cities to the ground, even for economic injustice. They won't even burn European cities to the ground. They won't cause the level of Black Lives Matter, 31 million person uprisings for Black lives, non-white lives, even though racism is preponderant in Europe, including Muslims overrepresented in prison, in poverty, etc. Global South people overrepresented in inadequate housing, and Belgium still has chocolate hands celebrating its chopping its hands off of black children in Africa and Congo, because Belgium is a racist country. Denmark still has Netherlands still have Black Peter celebrations because they're still racist, little spoiled poodles of America. And this is what the enlightened countries of Europe are doing, being embarrassed by actually advanced countries, being embarrassed. That's what the enlightened countries of Europe are doing, right? While China is doing this, right? While Vietnam is vaccinating all their people and had 0 deaths because of their extreme prioritizing of people over profit, right? And their own selfish individual need to go on a vacation to the Bahamas, right? Or the European, I have to go to the beach in, Hawaii. I have to, until everyone on Earth is safe, I'm not going to take any vacations. Until the people of Niger, who have 90% of them don't have electricity, they're not going anywhere. They can't even get to the store because they don't have a road. Because Europe and France, that has the majority of Niger's uranium, is currently lighting their houses, not building them roads, not getting them electricity. So they can't get to a Hawaiian beach. Please don't come here in the middle of this pandemic. They can't get to a Greek, beautiful, sunny, white sand beach. They can't go to the Louvre in Niger because they don't have electricity to find a flashlight, to find car keys if they had a car. And if they had a car, they couldn't drive on a road because they don't have the goddamn motherfucking roads. So until the people of Niger can go on a vacation, you should stay the fuck home. You don't deserve anything. You don't need to go on a vacation to Hawaii or otherwise and spread your pandemic with all of your U.S. military and all of your unmaxed vaccine card and vaccine passport faking motherfuckers. But that's not something that Europeans, Americans, Canadians, Australians think about. And that supersedes even capitalism. But that's part of why capitalism continues to exist. Because if they thought about the rest of the earth, they would have already had a revolution in all their countries. But the truth is they don't. They don't. They don't give a shit. If they gave a shit, if they actually really gave a shit. And they're, it's like America is already hurting more than enough. They're actually worse off than the Vietnamese. They have 40 times more malnutrition deaths in the United States than the Vietnamese. They have $70,000 COVID bills. Vietnam has $0 COVID bills. They have 1,000 times more homelessness than China. China basically has none. They have a plan that deals with that problem. They have shorter lifespans than Cuba in the United States. What they can afford with their better incomes is less than all these other places. Yeah, they have slightly nicer flat screen, maybe. Not really. The transportation system is behind Laos. But they don't revolute because they are diseducated and selfish. And they still think they're going to get a slightly better cut above as a white person above the black person. And they get a slightly better cut in the capital. The Republican is, I'm going to get a better white cut at being a white dude and patriot, center, right, left, whatever. And they think they can get a slightly better cut from capitalism being a Democrat working as a corporate, think tank propaganda spewer saying, Yeonmi Park was right and the North Koreans banned Matrix. North Korea has banned Matrix Revolutions and Resurrections cosplay. And they'll execute anyone who wears a trench coat. I mean, what kind of illiterate, nonsensical... You can't even do your freaking anti-communist propaganda right anymore. What the heck? That doesn't even make any sense. Why would they ban trench coat? There's a picture of like Kim Jong-un like with a trench coat. Anyone you can't wear a trench coat. Does anybody believe this shit anymore? I mean, if Americans and Europeans, which apparently they keep believing this stuff, even people with college degrees from Germany, because I just saw a German and someone from Denmark retweeting that and saying, yeah, those North Koreans, we have to stop the tankies from banning us from wearing trench coats. So that's the level of education that they have there. So, I mean, I guess then that's how far you've fallen. Is you believe shit like the North Korea. If you ever watch Squid Game, actually North Korea gets a pretty good rap. It makes South Korea look like shit. And they're saying they're arresting people for watching Squid Game in North Korea. They said the Vietnamese Vice. Luna said people who impersonate Salt Bae in Vietnam will be arrested by the Vietnamese police in the street. This was Vice's reporting. And then Variety and then CNN and everybody jumps on it. Actually, I watched like in real time that Squid Game happened. I watched Radio Free Asia come out with a story, and like about 30 seconds to a minute later, Variety, CNN, BBC, I mean the whole, you name it, all the blue check marks and all the center media, Facebook, Instagram, blasting the Radio Free Asia. Again, if you watch the stream, you probably know who Radio Free is, but if you see Radio Free something, that's a TLDR, that's a CIA, that's capitalist imperialist ruling class, military industrial complex propaganda. So please do not reshare. Anyways, but I could see it happening in real time because I saw like the first Radio Free Asia and then bam, 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 everything trending. Also, it's good how it shows on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all your Western capitalist social big tech firms, all your social media. It operates perfectly in sync with Wall Street, the Pentagon, Silicon Valley, working perfectly in sync together. I'm like, holy crap, this is like really organized. I almost feel like to be a journalist, basically what you do is you have a little red button. You have two buttons. You have one button is the Radio Free Asia button or the Radio Free whatever. It's the CIA, State Department, NED button, and you push that button, and you don't have to know how to type. You don't have to read, write, or type. That's you could have 100%. America already has 54% illiteracy, or below a junior high level of reading. So you could have 100% illiterate country just hooked up to the metaverse, like having their Neuralink jack straight into the CIA, the CIA disinformation feed, right? And they can just like hit a button with their tongue, and like a virtual red button, and just go, and all that is reshare CIA cutout, and you have like an AI. You have like a really broken, malfunctioning AI because America can't make AI, and that's why the Pentagon chief of cyber warfare quit because you're failures. And then you used to go, and then your crappy AI badly misspells a reworded version of the CIA disinformation, right? And that's going to be all the jobs in America. It's going to be like the Morlocks, but you're like sitting in a subterranean pod, right? Paying $2,000 a month, doing virtual gulag casino, please competing like rat racing virtually, right? In a gamified metaverse virtual reality panopticon of exclusively different flavors of CIA disinformation that you can retweet from your little pod as you wait to die and be liquefied and then intravenously fed to your neighbors in the Matrix-esque pod farms that you will live in soon. Because that's the only job that's going to be left, is doing that. Because the robots are going to do all the actual police brutality and killing and George Floyding, and then the international world policing and slaughtering and killing a Muslim. So you're not going to do that. You just sit around and retweet garbage. It's going to be the only job. Reshare garbage, right? That's the Westerner job. Just sit around and put out military industrial complex think tank nonsense with your tongue, because you won't have any hands. Why would you need hands? Your hands could be sold off, right? And then you write an article about how the Vietnamese and the Chinese are, organ legging. That's cyberpunk, yellow peril shit as well. That's part of the purpose of original cyberpunk, was to stomp Asian countries back down because America was afraid of competition and communism. And you can say that the Chinese and the Vietnamese are harvesting people's livers and kidneys and selling them on the black market, right? And they're also chopping off people's hands and legs and selling hands and legs on the black market, right? While Belgians still sell chocolate hands because they're racist and they like celebrating all the black kids that they killed. And so then the French and the Vietnamese and the Chinese and the Cubans and the group of friends in defense of the UN Charter are chopping off hands and selling them off. Meanwhile, you have no hands because the United States has chopped your hands off and sold them like a bad English speaking version of Squid Game. When you sign away to the loan sharks, all of your kidney and your liver and your fingernails and your arm and your leg and your stomach has some ivermectin in it because that's what you've been drinking, right? Because you listen to diseducators and goat nail polish, so they can chop your stomach out, sell the ivermectin to another idiot, right? They use like some kind of reverse osmosis filter to suck the ivermectin out of your stomach and sell it to the next dumb shit, and then sell the stomach to somebody who needs a stomach. Right, probably a billionaire that is using you like the island, not the island Dr. Moreau, but the other island, where clones of people live 1 to 2 years and then get killed in this under the ground facility, and their organs are harvested for the billionaire owners. So you can have a lot of fun being the island for Mr. Bezos and having no arms and legs. Because you don't need them. Why would you need them? You don't have to type. You have to think. You have to do anything. You just sit there and then open your mouth and eat some, ivermectin with, Cheetos and some bland, flavorless turkey that you can't cook because you are racist and you don't use the spices from the spice route. And so you can just go, and then taste your shitty turkey and then, retweet bullshit that the CIA put out, and that'll be your job for the foreseeable eternity. Anyways, back to this. So violence broke out in Brussels and anti-vaccine protests in Europe's latest day of rage. So that's really sad. I don't know why you would do that. Why would college-educated people across the Western world, including Germany, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and Finland, Poland, France, why would you shoot at police officers? And that's okay, because when you're a white man, you can shoot at police officers and they don't kill you. You can even hold a gun, and you can, just like Kyle Rittenhouse, you can wave the guns around and it's okay. And in Europe, it's the same thing. So they're actually live, like 9mm ammunition was found shot into police officers in places like France and in Germany. Not in defense of against capitalism, not in defense of to fight racism, not like, at least the George Floyd protests were, and the Black Lives Matter was about something actually useful. No, they're burning cities, attacking police officers, and setting their entire country into chaos in Europe because they don't want to follow basic medical, scientifically proven procedures. That's the level of, so that's how enlightened Europe is. That's how enlightened Europe is. Really, that's really great. Stick your head in the metaverse. I'm sure it's going to help. Stick your head. Anyway, I want to point out, and I want to point out also, these so-called enlightened countries of Europe also humiliated themselves. They humiliated themselves previously, when they when Hawaii, I'm gonna go through this real quick just to reiterate because people might not know. They were embarrassed by the native Hawaiians because I kind of brought up that Hawaii was a model for China. Many Americans think that Hawaiians lived in huts prior to colonization. The U.S. actually deindustrialized Hawaii. Before 1898, we already had electricity, mass transit, and railroads. Iolani Palace had electric lights before the White House. So if anybody says, Silver Spook is just making stuff up, no, I mean, these are all, you can look all these receipts up. Adam Kiave Manolo Comp is the major source for a lot of these, but not exclusively. This is a Hawaiian train. Again, the Laotian super high efficiency, high quality trains that the Belt and Road is, the group of the new Silk Road that is being built, look at that, look, also remember Google is, part of, I'm sorry, the Bugles chip company, parent company that rhymes with it. No, we can never speak negatively about the Death Star satellites that I stream from. But remember, when you type in Laos High Speed, you know who is the first one that comes up? And this is why. All of the big techs are involved because 90% of people don't click past the first result. Remember what I said, radio free X and Y and Z, right? Radio free something. That's your ruling class, capitalist, imperialist news. So don't click on that one. But again, this is why even when you type things, you got to be careful. I mean, I'm typing things into Google, but you got to be careful because it's going to give you nonsense because it's every one of the big tech capitalist countries, anything headquartered in the West, period, including all the people, are dangerous because they're everything is full of disinformation. Everything is run by foreign of the richest because they're all still barbarians. They're all still might makes right. And then there's like right makes right. And there's non-barbarian indigenous civilizations like Vietnam and China and Cuba and Bolivia. To degrees doing better or not. But the United States and the West are not. And that's why when you type stuff into any of these, you got to be very, very careful. Okay? So I try to give you as many good sources as I have been able to find. Ask Luna Oi how fun it is to have to talk to Westerners when you come from a country with an education system. It's not fun. So that's why I love talking to Luna. That's part of why I do all these panels with Luna, because I'm like, we can go to these panels and we can like talk and not have to like explain in preschool level education in like little baby talk. Because when you talk to white people, you talk to Westerners, you got to explain things like they were born yesterday because they were born 140 characters ago. Right? Whatever the CIA is telling them and radio free Earth is telling them, that's what's in their brains. I watched my father. He has a higher level of university attainment than me, and he's read much more books than me. It doesn't help when you're reading disinformation. You hang around with other echo chambered nonsense spewers, with high with very large cranial thesauruses. I mean, that's part of why I do make games like Neofeud, because I'm like, I have the privilege of going to a school that gave you too many words to know, that taught you wrong things with a very large vocabulary. So I use my, larger than the average vocabulary and ghostwriting for science fiction authors. All of them were rich and white. Because that's the people who have the money to pay you to do shit. The people that actually write good science fiction, they're too poor and non-white to get their own stuff published under their own name. That's a sad reality. I mean, there's a lot of, I don't want to put all the science fiction authors on blast, all the white dudes who have other people doing all the research, coming up, but that's the reality. Is the way the publishing industry works is you have teams of disproportionately non-white, non-men, non-straight, doing all the actual hard work, researching, coming up with the ideas, writing, and polishing the actual books. And then some white guy gets to take the credit. Or white turf like J.K. Rowling. Laos high-speed rail brings buzz to Thai border town, Laos Bank. Anyways, but what I was saying was Laos has a high-speed train, right? That is in excess, is greater and more successful. If you see Radio Free Asia or Radio Free anything bad mouthing or talking down about a thing, just remember that's probably it's not a guarantee, but it's probably a positive project. Because they're not going to spend money, right? Okay, imagine that you run the military-industrial complex and the greatest oligarchic headquarters of capitalism in you know, DC and Wall Street. Yeah, imagine that you own the United States government and all of the Western governments by extension, because they all kowtow to the U.S. government, which kowtows to the richest people and billionaires of the earth. Imagine that you're, you know, and you're like, okay, what am I gonna do with all this money that I have, right? That I'm gonna get printed by my central bank system of ECB US and the Japanese central bank. What am I gonna do with all this money that I have, right? You're not gonna waste your money bad mouthing just some random train, right? You're gonna use it to your maximum benefit. You're gonna stop win-win cooperation between socialist countries to do economic development, to liberate more people out of poverty, feed more people, and benefit people and make their lives better, right? Especially non-whites. Like Laos is a not white country, right? America, you know, helped, you know, cause a lot of death and destruction there in the Vietnam War era. It's not just the Vietnam War. They also backed the Cambodian regime. They talk, oh, in the Cambodia, this is terrible things happen. And there's a holiday in Cambodia. Yeah, you know what? A holiday in Cambodia was, you know, American ruling class that went down and said, hey, kill all your people. We don't really care. We just need to make quagmires for China and Russia and play Grand Chessboard Brzezinski game. We have to play Heartland Theory, continued imperialism with neo-colonial characteristics. Okay? Cambodian, whoever, we don't care. We don't care about the Cambodians. We don't care about the Myanmar people that are all dying because the U.S. wants to disrupt the Belt and Road going through their land. We don't give a shit about any of these Asians. Asians are like non-humans. Asians are like, you know, they're like monkeys that like, you know, they're like monkeys with like Roswell-shaped eyes, and we don't care about any of those people. You know, we don't care about any of those illegal aliens, whether they came from space or they came on a boat. We don't care. We don't care about them. Just you get them all killed. Here's a bag of money. Here, Dalai Lama. Here, be one of our assets up there. You know, we don't care. We don't care about the Asians in Tibet. We don't care about the Asians in Xinjiang. We blow them up. 2018, greatest day of U.S. military Afghan bombing. A single greatest day of Afghan bombing. We don't give a shit about the Uyghurs. We don't care about the Taiwanese. We're gonna get them all nuked in accidental, you know, Taiwan Strait hypersonic warfare. We don't care about the Taiwan. We don't care about Hong Kong. We don't even know what Hong Kong is. We don't have an education system. We're a bunch of idiots. We don't know it's a British colony. We don't know it's far-right protesters backed by our own fucking government. We don't care, because I'm someone from Denmark. I'm a Finnish person. I'm a German person. I'm an American. I'm a Canadian white idiot. I don't give a shit about Asians, period. As one of my a fellow game dev from France said, his boss, he was a game dev in France, I believe in Paris. He said, you know, Silver Spook, when you talk about the anti-Asian racism that's everywhere, yellow peril that's everywhere in the West, you know, it's really true. You know, my boss said at the game company, he said, when I was going out, I had a Filipino girlfriend, and my boss said, remember, Filipinos are for sex, never marriage. He said that like in the office, like in front of everyone. That was in France in 2021. So, you know, the French are just sad that they can't have Vietnamese carrying them around and abusing them like little insects, right? The French are just sad they don't have their little colony to extract wealth and slaves, coolies as they call them, and land. That's what the French, they don't give a shit about Asians. They don't give a fuck about. That's why French, they just want to build multi-billion-dollar submarines to make money blowing up more Asians, right? They want to nuke more Taiwan. The French and Australians are just gnashing and clawing at each other to nuke Asians faster. So, yeah. Anyway, back to this. This is what happens when you don't get enough sleep. You get all pissed off. But the Native Hawaiian mass transit system, which had an integrated system of rail, trolleys, ferries, embarrassed the Western world, which didn't have a very good mass transit system and didn't care to give one to the 99% of their population. Under continued feudalism, capitalism, racialized capitalism, slavery, colonialism, which were all integrated, existing in various degrees at various times, and are basically all one hierarchical Western barbaristic system. And they don't care about getting their peasants why would they want their peasants transported? Why would they want their peasants to have Native Hawaiian advanced mass transit? Or economic development that benefits all the people, like the win-win cooperation of the Belt and Road does? Why would they want Cuban-level healthcare like the Native Hawaiians had? You know, and by a Cuban level, I mean universal and free. Why would the Europeans want that? They don't want that. They've never wanted that. They don't want it. They still don't really want it. Well, they want it for all their white citizens, maybe. But there's still a lot of white citizens that even suffer still, despite all of their socialized systems. Particularly those that, you know, are more in the eastern, let's just say the eastern end of that so-called unified bloc. The only thing they're unified by is we do whatever Lockheed Martin says. That's the only thing that unifies Europe. So anyways, Hawaii also had a higher literacy rate than the United States. Remember what the literacy rate is in the United States right now? 54% are under the junior high level. Europe also doesn't have historical literacy. That's why 75% of them in France think that U.S. won World War II. Before they banned our culture and language and colonized us, erased our history and ghettoized us, Hawaiians were often bilingual or trilingual and world-renowned diplomats. Again, so in the island of Hawaii was ahead in literacy, and the enlightened countries of Europe were behind it in 1860s. Again, what I'm saying is the enlightened countries, right? The enlightened countries. Who are the enlightened countries? Right? Where's my goddamn motherfucking tab? Who are the enlightened countries? You know who's the enlightened countries? Who are the enlightened countries? Who are the countries who are so enlightened, right? Who are the countries that are so enlightened that this is what they're doing? These enlightened countries. Who are the enlightened countries? What the hell does enlightened even mean? It's nonsense. When you talk about Europe being enlightened, you talk about Europe being enlightened. This is like talking about like amoebas winning like the Pulitzer Prize, you know? This is like, not that the Pulitzer Prize is worth much. No Western award is worth anything. The Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to the greatest war criminal that ever lived. His name is Barack Obama. What does peace even mean? You know, it's Western. I call it Schrodinger's Western brain. It's like, what is the meaning of this? Oh, is it a Uyghur that we need to blow up today? Okay, well then it's an enemy combatant. It's a scary Muslim murderer. Oh my God, they're chopping the heads off of us. They're gonna come blow us. They're gonna nuke us like in True Lies in 1998 with nuclear weapons, and Arnold Schwarzenegger has to stop them. Oh wait. Now it's Schrodinger's Western quantum brain, quantum Uyghur. Right? The Uyghurs are the same. They're always who they are. But in the Western brain, it goes between a murderer and then, oh wait, no, we need to save them now because we need to make China look like its enemy. Like we love our Muslims, we love our Chinese people, but we hate our Muslims, we hate our Chinese people and our Asians. But we really love Chinese Muslims, right? But that's the that's the level of, that's leftist, that's centrist, that's rightist, that's everybody. Even the college professors, the ones that know it, they don't want to talk about it because they're scared, because they're still about might makes right. You know, even if you know it, most college professors, they only know, to be clear, Western college professors only have usually if they have any education, it's very narrow. It's like, I know quantum computing and not enough to make a supercomputer that's even close to a fraction of a percent what a Chinese can do. But I know quantum computing. I know the history of, Puerto Rico and maybe Cuba. That's what I know. I am a historian with a PhD from a Western accredited college. I know maybe some China. There's like one. There's a Ken Hammond, and that's about, but that's basically what I know. I know, and nobody listens, and there's barely anybody that's, and also people who are economics professors, they're all rogue. Like Richard Wolff, Michael Hudson, these people are all rogue professors, right? The average one is just, I know my fact, I know my thing, I teach my thing. Please don't get me fired. Giant corporations that use universities as 50% food insecure, neo-feudal serf farms call all the graduate students to teach the majority classes, and perma-temps, and giant knowledge farms to give the military-industrial complex STEM and biotech so they can make money from it. That's what, and gentrify towns and jack up the Ponzi pyramid, first world city commercial real estate scheme, right? That's what universities are good for. That's what your Western university system is good for. Also spreading COVID-19 and making sure people show up to overpriced glass and concrete buildings called their entire campuses. That's what universities are good for in the West. What? I thought you were the enlightened countries and you get enlightened in your education systems. I thought you were the enlightened countries, right? I thought you were the enlightened countries of Europe. Right? With all your solutions to the world's problems. Right? You're going to lead anarcho bike ride, steel spoon, vegan cleanse, first world imperialist, diseducated little co-op in, Amsterdam. I thought you were the enlightened ones. I thought you're the enlightened ones. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with any of being anti-racist, trying to care about climate change. I mean, yeah, these are important things, but you don't understand enough about these things. You know just enough to be damaging and not enough to actually make any motherfucking change. What happened to the enlightened countries of Europe? That's a rhetorical question. There never has been any enlightenment in Europe. It's a stolen word from Asians. The word brainwashing is also popularized by an anti-communist who got a book deal with DC. Every word, almost every word in English, I would argue, is basically nonsensical. Makes no sense. And when you use the words, you're actually talking nonsense, most of the time. So most of the time, when I'm trying to talk, I'm like trying to piece together some amount of sense by undoing the bullshit baggage that is bathed in the blood of billions of people, including my dead relatives in Chinatown that were incinerated by your European and American friends, my Asian and Pacific Islander relatives. So I'm trying to figure out how to use these disgusting words that are like nonsensical to put some sense into the minds of these terminally diseducated people. European visitors to the Paris Exposition were, for the most part, ruled by monarchs, and only their highborn were privy to excellent educations. Hawaii had an over 90% literacy rate. Not just literacy, education. People who are literate, just because you're one of the 46% of the United States that can read above a junior high level, does not mean you're educated. In fact, you could even be more diseducated. You can come out of a college, like a Marxist professor with a 6 to 8 year degree who lived here, and you could be even stupider than when you went in. Because now you're even more confident in the mountain of lies that you have been taught in your public school and your high school. You could come out less diseducated by not going to college in the United States. And I say that as somebody who went to one. So, but let's leave that aside. European visitors, the reason why they were only educating the highborn is because they didn't care about the masses of the people. They still don't. There are people who actually know what is happening in Vietnam. There are people who know that in the West, there are some people, about this many people, who know that Kim Jong-un is not having people publicly executed by rats eating children who, while the rats are eating the children, eat the Matrix trenchcoat wearer, because that's how they execute people in North Korea, according to Yami Park, who is on not just Joe Rogan, the New York Times, the BBC, CNN, Western, German media, Euro media, Canadian media. There are about 0.1% of the population in the West that actually knows that the North Koreans are not doing all the things that have been blasted through their media. And I say this as somebody who has succumbed to this because I was just some random stormtrooper like you. Or not like you personally, but I mean the people out there who are not regular Silver Spook listeners. I succumbed to this nonsense because that was the only matrix that I could live in at the time when I was being told that Hawaiians were backwards, savage, non-primitive, backwards peoples, and my ancestors were saved from barbarically stabbing each other with spears and then eating each other from America, right? We'd all still live in mud huts, right? And I was only barely saved by that because of a handful of like basically rogue educators. Again, the tiny fraction of people that know anything about the world. But the people who really know are the people that are in the descendants of the narco traffickers and WASPs and the Delano Roosevelts who are on the Harvard board, for example, right? And those people, like the European feudal capitalist, the Roman capitalist, the British capitalist and the feudal the part of the lie, even Richard Wolff will say this, and I disagree with a lot of these concepts. This concept that it went from this progress, the word progressive is bathed in the blood of indigenous people who we progressed out of by becoming European. To become civilized and progressive meant to exit non-white, basically, country indigenous barbarism into tribal savagery, and then up to feudalism, and then up to slavery, feudalism, capitalism, and then some socialism and thingy over there that has never been achieved in any of these white countries, right? The reality is that, the same oligarchs and some of them had more feudal, again, the level of feudal characteristics, oligarchic characteristics, it's kind of like, it just depends. It's like, socialism with Chinese characteristics or socialism with Vietnamese characteristics, right? Many different types of democracy. There's a new project that's being done on CGTN, like the whole process democracy that China actually features, right? But similarly, there is barbarism with British characteristics circa 2021, which is more neo-feudal, techno-feudal, post-capitalist, right? Just printing up money or taking printed American money, not producing anything except bullshit garbage from the BBC, right? That's what people do. Or HSBC, unpayable debts for repackaged, overpriced British high street real estate. That's what people do, right? Rigging LIBOR, right? So that's British Western barbarism 2021 with 2021 British characteristics. Then you have feudal Spanish characteristics, right? And then feudal Spanish colonial characteristics, like when Columbus came and poured boiling soap down the throats of indigenous people in South America. And when I talk to my indigenous South American friends like Anua Mauta, our indigenous South American friends like Santo Alvaro Ojeda of 1870 Cyberpunk Forever, they speak of feudalism. The Spanish conquistador, Spanish colonizers had more feudal system. And the North Anglo-Americans had a more capitalistic system. What does it amount to? Masses of people, disproportionately non-white, especially basically all non-white at the highest level, imperialism, the highest form of capitalism, doing all of the work for barely enough to eat. Santo's family were paid in potato sacks, which they could personally make into clothing. They didn't get any food. They would farm and leave all the food they farmed would left there, and they had to go home. Right? And then in North America, you had slavery, capitalism, but the idea that these are like totally different, separate systems, and one is an improvement. No, these are all fucking just forms of Western barbarism. And the current system is not really an improvement about all of those. The number of people that are currently in poverty is actually increased if you cut out the countries that have undone their Western barbarism. Socialism, China, Vietnam, they're all non-white countries. The ones that are successfully socialist are former Western barbarist colonies that have undone their colonial subjugation and exploitation. And when you cut them out, there's not been any improvement. In fact, quality of life has been descending in the West for the last 40 years, at least. Even if you're non-white in the West, it's even worse. So this idea that there's this progress, and towards the civilization, that is all mythology. And I would include that we're getting better because we went from feudalism to capitalism. There are indigenous people right now, like Nua Malta down there in the plurinational socialist indigenous-led states in South America, led by Evo Morales and other members of the group of Friends of the Defense of the UN Charter, and all the Quechua and the Guarani peoples down there. They're like, you should follow Nua Malta, by the way. It's another important voice to follow, because they point out that this requirement to go through a pathway to slavery, feudalism, capitalism, blah, 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 and then progressing up to socialism, right, is wrong-headed, is Western-centric, is Eurocentric, and is not necessary. Somebody who correctly debunked a bunch of nonsense coming out of the mouths of these people. But anyways, Peru, a constitution designed in a dictatorship, 1993 constitution by Fujimori for the dictatorship, and produces a crisis of governance after the dictatorship, where the part of the crisis consists in denying to discuss that. Maybe the constitution is involved with the crisis. Anyways, so Nua Malta talks a lot about Bolivia, Peru, all the South and Central American countries. And, importantly, it highlights that indigenous people were practicing many practices that were not necessarily what is described as full communism or socialism. Although the American Indian Department that was in charge with extermination of indigenous people in the United States literally said that these people are the indigenous people of North America are communistic, collectivist, right? By the European descriptions, and anyway, so it's very important. We don't need it is not necessary for us to follow a Euro-centered trajectory up the progression of civilization. Now, we can learn from their mistakes mostly and what they've written about their mistakes and their horrible systems like capitalism. However, this idea that that there is a progression is nonsense. It's not really progression. Elements of capitalism existed, as I've already kind of alluded to, in Rome, including bidding up and selling off and making money, collecting on insurance on real estate in after fires and during fires for the oligarchy that existed in Rome and in Greece. These are not new this thing is that there's these ancient peoples, and they were like ancient and very democratic and free, and we write the history because we're, to the history go the history books, right? Thus said some old white guy who fucking cares. They don't deserve the credit for the nonsense that they spewed in their history books that they wrote, that you read. And I was forced to be brain poisoned by. The history books say that we had these great democratic civilizations, and they were like Greeks, and then we built pillars that look like it in DC, and we call us the great democrat, and then we're like, and then everything that everybody's learning about Thanksgiving and it's not like suddenly that became true. It's just that everyone has been lied to about the myth of the American free, equal democracy that was a blood-soaked, for-profit, racist, genocidal slave factory. And everybody, the newer generations are just sooner being unpoisoned by the nonsense, right? So all of this stuff is just bullshit, and it's incredibly when you know the truth, it's just incredibly frustrating. And that's why if I don't have enough sleep, like I didn't last night, I can't control the magnitudes, the Super Saiyan Silver Spook. I'm trying to be even more alliterative than that. Super Saiyan Silver Spook simmering with, subterranean outrage. I can't control it sometimes if I don't get enough sleep, so I should probably stop. With that slide, anyways, but importantly, this idea that the advanced countries, the enlightened countries were there. Enlightened is a stolen word, actually, from Asian language and from other religions in East Asia, primarily. That was never achieved, just like brainwashing is a term that was stolen. And actually, it means rejuvenation and undoing. People say thank you for the education nowadays, like young people. Usually young people, like the handful of base leftists that exist in the West that speak English. Thanks for the education. That's what brainwashing actually, it meant, like a cleaning of the heart, cleaning of the soul, cleaning of the mind, cleaning of ideas that you thought, notions and practices that you did that were not, that were just not as good as they could be. And you could be better. You could do better, Things that people only in 2020 are learning. This is things that the Asian civilizations, they were not perfect, and indigenous civilizations had similar ways, but not just debating for clout points, money, maintaining your global hegemony, even knowing you're wrong, but being right, continuing to make right being more important than the truth shining into the minds of all people, right? That wasn't the way of indigenous civilizations, and to in the overarching total way. And the word brainwashing actually for the Chinese, zinao, it actually meant the cleaning of your old less right ways, and then trying to do better, right? It's being more pono for Native Hawaiians to be like trying to be pono, correcting our errors, and then trying to do better next time, right? Not doubling down on the errors. Go, no, I'm right. You're like, well, that was a racist thing you said. No, that wasn't racist. You're canceling me. This is a culture war. You're blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's another reason why the West and the United States will never have a left in it, if it continues that path, right? Because that's a denial of reality. Like, let's not negate racism and sexism and all these other things. Let's just double down and just say that we're so-called leftists getting canceled, right? And they make a lot of money, right? Make a lot of money, right? Become lords of our own vampire castles under continued digital YouTube feudalism, which is a continuation of feudalism under the Windsors and the Lannisters, but in real life, the Merovingians, right? And neo-feudalism under your corporations, right? Let's just continue that system. Let's just continue not caring about the masses of people but ourselves in a dystopian, a 1600s Game of Thrones dystopia called All of Europe. That was nasty and brutish and short. Or a nasty, brutish and short 1980s dystopia called Cyberpunk 2077, right? Which is America's getting as bad or worse than that now. Or in just dystopian 2021. Let's just continue getting the best cut in the hellscape and diseducate everyone else. Right? Let's keep the fact that COVID-19 is going to be the Spanish flu of the 21st century, right, in our pocket. And tell everyone in the United States, Trump, Senate, Republicans, and Democrats, let's tell everyone else. Let's diseducate the 99%, as the Europeans did to their commoners. Let's diseducate everyone and tell them that COVID-19 is no big deal. Let's let everyone think that. Again, it's not just Donald Trump. These are both, all sides. Every single senator, every congressperson, senator, member of the intelligence community, the U.S. Officials, government, corporations, military, every single one of them are treasonous because they allowed the deaths, 750,000 people, the destruction of countless more lives and economic suffering due to the knock-on impacts of not doing the Chinese did in the beginning. Every single one of them. Because they chose themselves and their short-term gain. It's like when you choose your short-term gain. I don't care about the pandemic. I just want to go to my club. I want to go to my nightclub. I want to go to the church. I don't care that it's going to spread plague to the rest of the world and we're never going to get this under control if everyone individually chooses to not distance, not mask, and not get a shot. Right? But you're just, you are just doing, and that's why it's not just the ruling class, not just the billionaires. It's all of the non-7 generational thinking, non-collective thinking, selfish individuals, so-called leftists, centrists, and rightists in the United States and the West, who collectively, in the collaboration with their billionaires, work together to harm themselves and harm the earth and stop our kids from ever having a normal, quote-unquote, normal childhood, going to the park, going to the zoo, seeing friends without endangering everyone's life. So thanks a lot for that. Thanks for harming all of the children of the earth and all of your fellow human beings because you cannot not go on a vacation or not go out. That part is the most frustrating. Is that it? These are people that often will talk and they're people who you feel should know better. Some of them are very highly educated. Some of them are even scientists. But their leisure time enjoying the land and the exploited labor of other people like Native Hawaiians in Waikiki is more important than the lives of all people and the well-being and the health of Earth and some semblance of some kind of normal resuming by getting the COVID pandemic under containment. Because that's what we're seeing. People, why doesn't China open up? Why would they open up? Why would they let 3 million, 4 million people die like you have? Why would they subject their people to such misery? Why they're not as barbaristic as the US, Germany, France, Sweden, Canada, Japan, India, that sides in these countries that side with the West, with the Quad. They're not as savage, the Chinese, as the West. Why would they stoop to your level? Why would they stoop to the so-called enlightened countries of Europe level? I wouldn't. Not if I was a Hawaiian with a universal healthcare system 25 years before anything in the Europe, And they even had universal health insurance in Europe. I wouldn't stoop to your level. Kalakaua, one of our leaders, had invented a subaquatic vehicle when Jules Verne was still dreaming of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Hawaii was a living Wakanda, an indigenous socialist Wakanda, indigenous future more technologically, economically, and socio-politically advanced than any Western nation. So this is the actual submarines. If you want to get a closer look, you can find that one. The sovereign country of Hawaii had black citizens before the U.S. Civil War. In fact, the U.S. had slaves, and that slaves that stepped onto Hawaiian soil were considered free. Chinese were full citizens in Hawaii as the U.S. chained up the Chinese to build the railroads on the West Coast, along with Canada, and the terrible racism and the lynching of Asians. And Canada's so-called Underground Railroad led to segregation for black people, still leads to inequality for black people. Canadians are currently kneeling on the necks of black people. I just watched a video of a Canadian police officer, George Floyd style, kneeling on a black person in Toronto, and also continue to commit genocide against indigenous people. So Canada is not the end of the Underground Railroad. That's a bunch of U.S. poodle lying. That's because Canada's U.S. is poodle. Remember? An example of actual equality, this is an actual certificate of citizenship for the people of, for a African person who became a full citizen while being a slave from Africa, and then became a full citizen, full human, as a member of the nation of Hawaii in this time, in 1800s. So Hawaii had this, equality, democracy, existing socialism without racial hatred, greater technological advancement in a person of color's nation. Put the U.S., the West, and Europe to shame, blew their white man's burden out of the water, which is why they crushed illegally Hawaii, as I always bring up, And so Hawaii, the Hawaiians and the Chinese who worked together and were a threat to the white oligarchy because of the Hui system whereby we avoided white banks and businesses. Hui were basically co-ops, as I often bring up. Chinese specifically also married into Hawaiian families, hence names like Akana, Aka, etc. I posit that Hawaii and China have had more socialism and more actual liberation than any Western country ever will, period. Europe still is not even close to anything that we've done. Even with the so-called universal health insurance. What good is your universal insurance in Germany when you have vast swaths of the population that are racially unequal, like the black and African and non-white population? What good is your so-called social democratic system when you're continuing to suck 97% of Bolivia's lithium out with deals with Elon Musk? Germany. What good is it when you are backing NATO and start trying to stoke the flames of nuclear war with China by suggesting that Taiwan is a country and should break away, going against the one China policy and international law? Germany. What good is it? I posit that there has never been anything even remotely close to a left anywhere in Europe or in the United States or any of these other fucking countries. And yeah. So I just want to keep saying that because I know Westerners have an attention span of about 140 characters or 2 minutes. And then when Radio Free World blows something up your ass into your brain, that's apparently where you get your ideas from, is inhaling the copium coming out of your asshole. Just like No Opinion at Bloomberg. Currently self-owning himself by sliding into Carl Zal's DMs. 2 minutes later, you'll forgot what I've said and you'll be eating up just like, all the college professors that I watch. Either you have the attention span of an amoeba, or you are a liar and a coward and a horrible person. And you pretend to be stupider so that you can seem less evil to yourself. Hawaii's coup, backed by U.S. gun diplomacy to smash a non-white country's building of actual anti-racist, socialist, thriving country, was the blueprint that would later be used on countless Asian, Pacific, and Latin American, African, and countries of the world. So these are the people of the 1893 members of the white business community that met in a corporate office in Honolulu to plan a coup against the elected government of Queen Liliuokalani. They were not sure how far they wanted to go, but they knew they had the support of the chief U.S. diplomat in Hawaii. So these are all your coups that Europe and despite America cooing you, they don't care. France gets cooed by America, and France goes, "Oh, America, please! You destroyed Alstom and our number one energy company, and you gave it to GM. But we're a bunch of we are still traumatized little coward descendants of the Aquila legions that stampeded through Paris and built circular cities and aqueducts and roads, ripping the veins of Europe apart, draining the veins of Europe and Britain. And we, Spain, France, Germany, Britain, we, the broken, cowardly, knock-on, punching forward into centuries of the future trauma inducer barbarians, we only ask America that you allow us to be part of your new Aquilan legions with Star-Spangled characteristics. We would love to make your subs. We don't care that you harm with your continued military posturing that is actually stopping us from getting magnesium to put in our German factories. That's costing Germans their jobs. And all of our continued NATO and war propaganding, war mongering and military industrial profiteering in all these bases is causing us to freeze and starve in the dark because of international trade and blockages of pipelines and fossil fuel and supply chain collapses because of our trade wars and our Cold Wars. We, the Europeans, we'll fillet you, Biden. We'll do whatever you need. Just let us build your subs for you. Please let us build your subs. Please, Uncle Sam. Please, current Caesar. We render unto Caesar in Washington, D.C. what is Caesar's. Have our nuclear-powered death machines that waste all of our money on our people, especially Black and Muslim in Europe, continue to suffer. Please have all of our resources. Please. We profess undying fealty. We profess allegiance to Caesar and his American dollar fiat denarius. Please. That's Europe. I'm really rubbing it against the Europeans because they piss me off the most nowadays. Because they should know better. They have access to more resources than the average American. They have better, even the white ones have better access to healthcare, housing, education, all of these things, but they don't use it. So piss me off even more. And I shouldn't say that. I'm still super. America is illegally occupying my country, so there is that. Silence reigns on the U.S. backed coup against Evo Morales in Bolivia. You know why? And as I said, Germany was part of why, because they wanted the lithium to go to the $35 an hour white man German gigafactory workers who would collude with Elon and Merkel and all the Nazis that still run Germany, including AfD, together with their liberals that have never left. They just got their, more mask off, relatives back into can. That's what Germany did with the United States' help. 70% of Germany's government after World War II were Nazis. So, anyways, to push the country back into poverty. So this is what we have to deal with over here. Genocide under international law. We have to deal with the highest literacy rate in the world, and now 1 in 6 Hawaiians can't read anything because of your diseducation. Public school. We have the worst schools in the United States, which are some of the worst on earth. We have the highest dropout rates in where Native Hawaiians live. And we're over 4 times more likely to go to prison, 6 times more likely to be shot by police than white people. Twice as bad as black people being shot by police in the United States, by statistically. So this is where we live. So I'm also mad about all this stuff, of course, as I always am. But back to this, the universal health care. Universal health care. So, let's go back over here. The other thing that we had, again, was before the West had it, was universal health care. And I want to bring this up. Not this, this is Luna's. Again, you should follow Luna Oi. If you don't follow Luna Oi, you're doing something wrong. So, just on the topic, because it recently was Thanksgiving, just a little bit about that. Here's a little backstory for you. America's genocidal thieves and slavers, also known as the Pilgrims, weaponized smallpox to exterminate Native Americans. They tried the same on Native Hawaiians, but we used contact tracing, lockdowns, and vaccines to prevent white biological warfare from completely wiping out our people. Part of some of this, a lot of this is watching the Omicron happen, watching this new variant happen, while Europeans and Americans and the Westerners in the capitalist world continues to be the reason why we have pandemic variants continuing indefinitely. If the U.S. and Europe could do even half as good as China or Vietnam and these countries like that could use even non-pharmaceutical and pharmaceutical measures together to stamp the virus out, and get vaccines to the rest of the world, we wouldn't be having these variants. So that a large, and which would mean that our kids and lots of other kids and all of other people could live in less fear, in less economic devastation, could be living healthier, not having brain fog. Many people would be alive, not continuing to die. And so so a lot of this is that suddenly coming out right now. But here's the history of the United States and the West. This is the Europeans in the United States. It was common practice for the explorers to capture Indians, take them to Europe, and sell them for slavery for 220 shillings apiece. Another common practice among European explorers was to give smallpox blankets to the Indians. Since smallpox was known on this continent prior to the arrival of the Europeans, Native Americans did not have any natural immunity to the disease, so smallpox would effectively wipe out entire villages with very little effort required by the Europeans. From 1615 to 1619, smallpox ran rampant among the Wampanoags. They lost 70% of their population to the epidemic, and Massachusetts lost 90%. And that's why the Pilgrims arrived. And when the Pilgrims arrived, they found well-cleared fields, which they claimed for their own. It was to them the wonderful preparation of the Lord Jesus Christ by his providence for his people's abode in the Western world. So, again, the Europeans have never made good on any of this. They have not done any reparations anywhere, period. They're still doing colonization. They're still $450 trillion out in the wrong. You know what hope? You know what restorative justice means? It means restoring equity, not just saying sorry or sorry, as they might in Britain, or les sorry, or whatever the fuck they say in French. I don't care to learn more disgusting stormtrooper languages. They don't. It's not just about saying sorry. It's about materially repairing and restoring equity. That means equal economic, social, and political equality. That's what the group of defends in the defense of the UN Charter. It's not a mistake that the group of friends in defense of the UN Charter are basically all non-global North, mostly non-white nations. The members here are the ones at least trying to get to restore actual restorative justice internationally. People talk about some progressive and liberal and left in the West. They like to talk about restorative justice, and we have to have a non-carceral restorative justice. You can't have a restorative justice system if you're participating in systemic injustice. If your entire system is unjust, if your entire economic in all vectors, right? Culturally, socially, language suppression, cultural suppression, racial suppression, right? Economic inequality, right? And so, again, look at the list, right? Algeria, Angola, Belarus, Bolivia, Cambodia, China, Cuba, DPRK, North Korea, Eritrea, Iran, Laos, People's Democratic Republic, Nicaragua, Russia, St. Vincent, the Grenadines, Syria, Venezuela. Again, who's not on that list? Who's not? German. You see any people? But do you know why they don't want to sign up for the defense of the UN Charter? Is because the reason the UN was even constructed initially, a large reason, right? To the West, it was to make themselves seem like they wanted to restore and lead the world into equality, into human rights, into freedom, into quote unquote installing democracy, right, around the world, right? Not because they wanted to do it, not because Britain, the United States, France wanted to. No, they just wanted to cover up their blemishes or their giant cancerous boils that are all over their face, just like all over the legs. That's why they put perfume on their stinky, disgusting, unwashed asses and legs in the 1600s and in 2021 with Jake Gyllenhaal and perfume salesman and L'Oreal. So, the group. So the group of defense, the people that have gotten, everyone in the group of defense, friends in defense of the UN Charter is on this list of red, right? They're all somebody that was a hit at some point by the United States to push the country back into poverty. Anyways, so I've been on this topic for far too long, but yeah, so the Pilgrims were using the Western Europeans who arrived in the United States used disease to exterminate indigenous people in North America, not only there. However, they tried to do that to us, but this is from Hawaii's Story by Hawaii's Queen. Only after, this is a book you can read, only after the ship departed, some of the people who had deserted that ship reported that the people, this is a white, crewed ship coming to Hawaii. And the ship specifically was called the Contra. The ship reported that the people who had died had succumbed to smallpox and that there were 2 Chinese on King Street who had mild symptoms of the disease. However, in my understanding, the disease was not seen amongst the Chinese passengers of the ship outside of the 2 Chinese, and the disease spread to our nation from the crew of that ship. This was the elected leader of Hawaii in the 1800s, mid-1800s, speaking of the arrival of a ship which shortly thereafter saw a smallpox outbreak. Again, the weapon that the United States and Europe, the weapon that Europeans have been known to use to exterminate and clear the land, to steal it under settler colonialism and colonialism. The point of this is that the Hawaiians used contact tracing, things that the French, none of these Western countries are even, I don't know if they're even capable of doing it at this point. It's kind of more like it's like trying to put out massive, widespread forest fire at this point. It's like basically trying to drench the whole house in water to just get the numbers down. They can't even do contact tracing, but they could have, but they failed because because of everything I just said. But anyways, the disease spread due to the native Hawaiians in the 1800s who had advanced medical technology like contact tracing. They investigated and discovered that the disease was spreading not amongst the Chinese passengers, but that the white crew were bringing the disease, intentionally lying and scapegoating the Asians when they themselves had already been dying and had been the major carriers of the plague, right? So you have all of the burnings of the China. I talked about this on other streams: burnings of Chinatowns, attacks on Asians. The current blaming the Chinese for making the virus in a Wuhan bio warfare lab, spreading it because of their disgusting eating practices. It's all the same anti-Asian racism. The Chinese are making it to stop the United States as a weapon to push them down and win this Thucydides trap. Great power competition. The Chinese continue to say, the people, the government, they all continue to say, we want win-win cooperation. Biden and Xi met and they said, we want win-win cooperation. We want to work together to fight COVID-19, to fight climate change. And Biden said, well, we're going to keep competing. We're not going to cooperate. We're going to compete. And let's just hope that we don't nuke the world. We'll try to, maybe Mr. Biden, will try to keep the neocon, McLuhan, Marshall descendants, and all of the Pelosi was actually a member of these, by the way, descendants of the Project of a New American Century and a Center for a New American Security, and all of these world-ending, post-reality, unhinged warmongers. Maybe Biden will stop them from destroying the world. Maybe, if I feel like it. So U.S. doesn't want to cooperate. It's not cooperating. It's still doubling down on anti-Asian, anti-China rhetoric. It's still doubling down on its, continued nonsense to push for war for its military-industrial complex. So I'll be back. 1 second. So it's very much, a continuation in the present. The weaponization of disease, right? The non-cooperation, right? I just read another article yesterday that said it's doubling down on the Wuhan lab leak theory. That's all radio free, blow the world up reports, basically. On Hawaii's world first universal, but like the Vietnamese, right? Like the Chinese, the native Hawaiians had our own system of discovering true things and then reporting it, right? It's called the education systems of Vietnam and China and Cuba. But and also it's important. As soon as the native Hawaiians figured out the disease there and that they had it, they immediately reported that to all the people. You know what the elected leaders of Hawaii didn't do? Unlike the American leaders, what they didn't, unlike the European leaders, who weaponized disastrous pandemics for their own benefit to make money in Wall Street and to make warfare in the Pentagon and the DOD, which is what your leaders did. Your leaders that you failed to, have successful revolutions against. By the way, this is your failure. It's your country. You know what Hawaiian leaders did? They told every single person about the disease, about vaccines, as soon as possible. So told everybody, like, this is how it's being spread. This is where it's being spread. Please follow X and Y and Z. And the people, because they were 90% literate and educated, unlike the entire Western world, to this day, 200 years later, after Native Hawaiians had 90% literacy, the U.S. and all the Western countries still don't even come close to the level of education that Native Hawaiians had, because they don't even have proper historical and economic education, like I've already pointed out. So, but the people of Hawaii had that education, so they could all collectively make informed, intelligent, educated decisions with the help of their government. The government said, get vaccines, and people said, yes, we will get vaccines because we are scientific, we understand biology, we understand medical science, we respect and we understand that we're working together in a socialist country for our collective benefit, and we're all going to get shots, and we're social distance, and we're going to lock down because that's what we have to do. You know who complained about the lockdowns that they did in Honolulu? White capitalist businessmen. How am I gonna sell my snake oil? How am I gonna sell my sugar cane and my pineapple juice, which with the Chinese laborers that I'm bringing in, the Hawaiians are trying to undo, and that's why they cooed us, because we tried to kick out capitalists. We tried to do, but we just didn't have the numbers, power, military, and everything. But that's why the U.S., the white capitalist descendants of Calvinist Puritan missionaries, Thurston Dole Pineapple, United Fruit Company friends, all of the sugar white oligarchs were the ones who complained about the and the only ones who really protested, if anything, the lockdown quarantine measures were those people. Same fucking people. Anyways, because everybody else knew, because it's our kuleana, it's our responsibility as Native Hawaiians to live righteousness and justice for all people and the Aina, that is our mother, and it is to live aloha, to love everyone and care for everyone, not ourselves, everyone, and not just us, and not just our immediate family and our little castle, 7 generations of our people, and not just 70 generations, and not just our people, but all people of the earth who will be negatively impacted if we personally don't take necessary medical precautions and measures. And it was in the same time in Hawaii, the same people choosing to prioritize themselves, their profit, to the detriment of everyone else in the sicknesses and death. In Hawaii, on Hawaii's world's first universal healthcare system, the right fight was led by Emma Kalani Kawamaka Amano Kaleleo Nalani Naearuk. She believed that access to healthcare was not a privilege, but a national security concern and right. So again, this is Queen's Hospital, 1859. A strict quarantine of all persons infected or under suspicion was maintained. With the universal healthcare system that Hawaii instituted, as I point out, 25 years before Otto von Bismarck would think of bringing universal health insurance to what would then later be known as Germany, and still isn't a socialist country for reasons I've already elucidated. Hawaii had, and 8 years before Karl Marx published Das Kapital, so we didn't need your book to figure out how to do actual existing concrete by the material. Talk about material conditions. There's a lot of talk about material conditions, but there's not a lot of material numbers, being put out there by a lot of Western leftists that don't really come clean on this stuff. By the numbers, Hawaii already had many things that we use to measure current socialist countries, like access to healthcare, alleviation of poverty, economic systems that are working for all people, not for a minority of people. Worker-owned cooperatives are a new big buzzword that Richard Wolff is trying to tell people about. We already knew what those fucking things were a long time ago. We already had them. We still have them. Silver Spook is a cooperative. It's a hui. It's not new. This is just like recently discovered and reported. It's like Columbus discovering America. This motherfucker has been here and known for thousands of years, but under terra nullius, Eurocentric, colonizer, genocidal, slave-driving, evil doctrine, it was discovered. The doctrine of discovery. That Canada's still uses in its courts. That Canada's university system still teaches as legitimate in its law schools, in its anthropology departments. That Canada and the United States still weaponize. The doctrine of discovery under our holy Roman Catholic emperors, our holy Aquilan with papal host eating, wine sipping, $40 million golden cardinal cape in the Vatican, Vaticans are all wealthy oligarchs that have never ended their Roman feudal capitalist, imperialist, slavist, capitalist oligarchy. That's who the cardinals, and that's who Rome is, and that's who Italy is. If they don't get even more on the side of UN Charter, that's who they're run by. So they're wealthy banking elite that basically said, oh, well, the Roman Empire can't defend our fucking profits anymore. Well, I guess we'll move on and we'll, hunker down and be, the feudal lords for a few, centuries, and then we'll come back out when it. This is not like a different system, really. I mean, yes, the formal titles, the capacity to have the level of organized empire that they have, but I mean, the system, it's not like the capital vaporized. This is the thing that the people who Euro leftists like to talk about, how there was this feudal thing over there, and then that's like totally different. That's why my game is called Neofeud, is basically to dunk on the entire Western Eurocentric world, because this is bullshit. This is bullshit, and to help people realize that these ways of separating out these different systems, right? This feudal system here, this capitalist system here, this imperialist system there, this racist system there, slavery system there, LGBTQ plus there, sexism over here, patriarchy over there, immigrant versus non-immigrant over there. And these are all different, separate, and we can all organize around the working class, just like Goebbels, John Swinton, racist union organizers, and the Nazis, and the continued Nazis that run all of the West continue to do. And American new Nazis, like the Brown Church that are running the American 2024 campaign, which Donald Trump or someone worse will win, because you're going to do compartmentalized, diseducated, nonsense, fake left brain, believing that all these things are... That's actually really think about it. National Socialism is just... It's like, okay, capitalism is a problem, but let's leave racism, anti-Semitism, sexism, all this stuff in place. Mussolini is just compartmentalized. It's actually a very good illustration of what happens when you go, okay, let's just class. Okay, white cis men and teachers, engineers, nurses, and Netflix employees are not working class, right? Luna Oi, Global South women are not working class. Luna Oi is a landlord. It's women, it's non-white people that the so-called Western left is now, America's left in particular, right? Even ones that are very high-profile leaders, they're very much, but that's because that is part of the illness of so-called Western socialist communists. I would argue even some great Marxist professors, while they say a lot of true things, their brains are all warped by being cis white guys. And they will fuck up socialism. They will fuck up revolution. They will fuck it up again as Swinton did, as the 30s and the sellout boomers did, as the socialists and communists who threw all the black and women under the bus in the 50s did. You will fuck it up again. And you will have Nazi America. So, no, I hope you don't, but I'm telling you this so that you maybe don't. The belief that these are all separate and we can deal with them separately is... you can ask Luna, you can ask the people in the global South. They just, they don't know how to, they do know what they're talking about, but just, it's hard. It's very frustrating. And, it's not in the way, and it's not really in their mental health interest to be trying to talk to people in the West and in Europe. Although Luna Oi does go out of her way all the time to make so much efforts, but, again, This is you really have to stop seeing the world, to my mind, you have to stop seeing the world as along a trajectory on a specific economic ladder that was written and headquartered in. And what does that mean? You have to read more indigenous and listen to more indigenous voices. And I'm talking about indigenous people from Alkebulan, from Yajo, from Abya /Hanuna /Turtle Island, and the Kanaka Moana. I mean the indigenous people of Asia, the Pacific, the Americas, and Africa. That's what I mean. That's exactly what I mean. I mean exactly that. You should listen to people who have success in producing actual socialisms. like the Bolivian people. Those are indigenous people. I don't think it's a mistake that it's an indigenous-led socialist movement that has been successful in being anti-imperialist, kicking out coups, materially alleviating masses of peoples of poverty. I don't think it's a mistake that it's the indigenous people, not a white European book worshiper, bread daddy worshipping idiot like any European country. It's Vietnam, it's China, it's Laos, it's former indigenous colonies that have thrown off the colonizers, that have successfully done what Kropotkin, Marx, all these beardy white guys have talked about and written about and failed to produce. And if you want to be, even if you're basically a scientist, you should follow rationally, empirically, where the evidence and where the successes are. And so that I am absolutely saying you should listen to more indigenous people. You should listen to more people that have led actual radical, successful movements or revolutionary movements. And that's why I'm failing to talk about what I'm supposed to talk about, but I'm going to chalk that up to 5.5 hours of sleep. But important, and also importantly, remember, the reason why Hawaiians, I would argue part of the reason why we're successful is not because there's something genetically in the blood of Native Hawaiians. It's not because of something in the water or in the mind, despite Karl Marx literally saying, along with Engels, that the soil of the lands of the Tartars is what reduces their, is what has caused them to be in this such a state. And Engels also said famously, the degenerate fallen state of the N-word, and use that word, is a result of the degraded soils of of Africa. Marx also said the same thing. The soil from which the food is sustaining the N-word, the black people, is a major cause for their fallen, bestial, nasty, and he uses all these words, Karl Marx and Engels, state. So that's the level of scientific, this again, it's this white guy with a beard fucking saying shit, and then you write it in a book, and you work for New York Times. The same people, the same people who I said are going to make you use your virtual holographic touch button tongue to retweet NED propaganda for your Zuck Bucks crypto pellet, your Shiba coin, so you can pay your kidney rent this month. Those people that are going to make you do that. Those are the same people that opened their mouth. It's called all of the New York headquartered Western, London, New York transatlantic media. That's who Marx worked for, by the way, Horace Greeley. They can just say any shit that they want, and because they're privileged white center might makes right people, then people can read their shit and then eat it up and pretend like they are scientific afterward, And like there are pertinent critiques of the systems, but I would argue that Marx and Engels accidentally said right things more than they actually said a lot of right things, which is to say that when I look in what they're saying, it's really fucking disgusting. And not just them, the labor organizers like John Swinton. I don't want to go back and read it again, but you know what I'm talking about. And the shit that they've said is accidentally right, and they plagiarized the Iroquois and the indigenous peoples of the First Nations of Turtle Island. The Europeans, for their meritocracy that they don't have, their merit-based system that they still don't have, right? Remember, hey, how's your system going, Europe? How's your that's not Europe. That's some other video game, How's your merit-based COVID-19 system going, Europe? How's the merit in Europe, right? You have your A levels, and how's the A levels going in Britain that you failed to properly roll out? Because if you had roll out A levels, which are plagiarizing the Mandarin and meritocracy of actual equal test taking that allows to choose which people would be best fit to be leaders and Mandarins in certain fields, you wouldn't have a fucking nightmare like you have right now. So that, TLDR is going not good. So, by using and by putting in place actually merited people, Kalakaua, by the way, was actually, a scientist, an engineer, a technician. The majority of the highest tier of the CPC is scientists and engineers, by the way. So that in a certain way, that is a brainwash. That's a see now, which is a when they say, the Chinese people seek win-win cooperation, Xiao Kang Xiao Hui, moderate prosperity, collective moderate prosperity for all. And we seek human development and economic development. You hear that word a lot. the Chinese, I don't have the exact Chinese translation, but it's hard to even, in developed Western $450 trillion silk, tea, rubber, wealth, labor, slaves, and land stealing colonizer world, in the developed first world, what development means is almost, it's so hard to describe, and that's part of the problem, is that it's hard to stop being a spoiled rich white prick when you're spoiled by so much pre-existing development, like your roads, your electricity, toilets, sanitation systems, basic infrastructure, that only people in the global south can really understand. And I say that I had toilets growing up, so I'm not even somebody who Luna had to go through that. So you're talking to Luna, you're talking to somebody that not only has an actual education in terms of math, science, technology, engineering, and also history, economics, in Marxism, in dialectic materialism, in true history of the world, the most important. You're also talking to people who have an education experientially in growing up in abject poverty with no eating grasshoppers as a delicacy, as a nice treat was grilled grasshopper, right? Eating a handful of rice a day and nearly starving, being short, and even being extra short and extra small in stature because your entire country was starving to death because of Western imperialism after bombing in the Stone Age, killing millions of your people, poisoning them and causing endless birth defects, right? So when you speak to Luna, you have multiple levels of extremely high quality education, experiential, institutional, right? What you're consuming in your media that isn't garbage, news, your family, your home, office, and park, and recreational conversation. That's all education, by the way. Your entertainment, which is different. They have Ho Chi Minh, Uncle Ho is like a superhero. Like America Workers, billionaire philanthropist, arms dealer, playboys, and the U.S. military, represented by Captain America and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And in Vietnam, Uncle Ho, actual liberators, coming back to this topic that I failed to stay on. The actual liberators like Uncle Ho and the women and men and all people, soldiers. So this is very important. It's very important that the liberation armies of Vietnam were not generally, and the more liberatory, the more actually socialist, the more actually communist, the more actually radically revolutionary the actual liberators are, the less toxically masculine they are. Because it's very easy to have toxically masculine military, right? It's doing a lot of violence. Its job is going to be to do violence out of necessity in defense and protection of life and people, right? And it's easy for the people who do violence to be toxically masculine. It's easy for the necessary training and, disciplining to veer off into toxic masculinity. But it's very important to note that there were some of the hardest fighters, both in the communists, in the Soviet Union, as well as in China, as well as in Vietnam, have historically been women. They like to leave that one out, or non-men. And I would argue that actually it's a good measure when you have a good representation of non-men fighting for a cause. There are some things that I can't really generalize. I shouldn't generalize all women, but women. I speak from the women that I know in my life. They don't necessarily want to jump to violence as a first resort. They're not really just generally, they're not I know a lot of dudes that are probably partially because of culturally more toxic things, but there's something to the testosterone, and there's something to anger and fear and fight, flight, and emotional responses. But at least the women that I know and the non-men that I know, they will definitely fight, and they will do some violence if it comes to defending the children, defending the family, the community. They will definitely throw down and beat some motherfuckers, and so when you are actually defending, not holding a shield with red, white, and blue and stars and stripes and saying, I'm defending the world, human rights, and freedom and democracy, like Captain Star Spangled motherfucking Chris Evans Underpants. Sorry, Chris. You chose to be a millionaire's movie star and be the guy that fucking represents death and evil while pretending to represent freedom and democracy. If you have, I don't have the receipts on this, but if you are actually defending communities, people, and doing the fighting on the right side against actual evil, you're going to have a better representation of dudes, of non-dudes. And, you know, I think that's reflected in these. Whereas in America, in the West, what you have is a bunch of jacked up on racist propaganda, diseducated, jingoistic idiots, people who are in poverty, highlighting receipts while black in Texas, trying not to get fucking murdered like Ahmaud Arbery, signing up, right? Signing up because they got economic reasons, signing up because they are just racist fucking assholes who want to add notches to their belt next to their hammer of Mjolnir and their Adam Waffen helmet. You have people, right, that are, it's a very American military. This is an article even in the New York Times, which is job is to be a military industrial complex propaganda spewer, just said, you know, women and non-men in the military routinely even raped, assaulted, sexually harassed in their uniforms, right? And the reason why the U.S. military is so toxically masculine, I think part of it, is because it's not fighting on the right side. It is the empire. It is the evil army. It is the barbarians coming. It is the invader. It is the space invaders. You know, in the Contra is where aliens come out. I mean, to maybe barely touch on my topic. Contra is a game where aliens from space come down and threaten Earth. They destroy an entire city and they threaten to kill and take the lives of all of the human people. They're vaguely xenomorphic, but you know, it's a movie, as Harrison Ford would say, and as the Konami executives would say, it's a video game. So it's not super serious. But anyways, I talked about threat inflation a few streams ago. And so the threat, and so when my point with this, you know, is why I want to put this up is that, you know, the people that are doing the actual liberation, right? You see who even well, Japan is trying to sell this game to people in, you know, as a collaborator with the United States, right? And also sometimes, you know, like France getting itself whacked, even being a friend of the United States. But, you know, it's a game that American audiences, they hope are going to buy. You know, people who have money, U.S. audiences. And so they have a white U.S. military looking Arnold A-team motherfucker with a giant gun. And, you know, looks like he's doing a lot of CrossFit, steroids, dropping alpha testosteronator pills from Joe Rogan, right? Muscly man's man dude. And then you've got normal, non-white, non-man, you know, actually doing the actual revolutionary fighting, the actual liberation of the actual real world. Again, this is important. Where I'm not trying to put Contra on the spot. I'm just, you know, I was thinking about making the title Independence Day, but I just want to talk about Contra and, you know, like the game design, and I didn't get to that because didn't get enough sleep. Anyways, but you know. Independence Day. I mean, every movie I've ever streamed about. I don't have to really. I feel like I've made that point like every time, like 5 times per hour over the last, you know, 300 hours of streams. So you're always showing, right, the U.S. military, white saviors. I mean, I had a whole stream of white saviors, white low melanin count interstellar saviors with Luke Skywalker and the Dune, Arrakis. Paul Atreides, right? You're always showing in the Western capitalist world, white, usually, you know, it depends on the time, on the body stereotypes that they want to portray, but, you know, dudes doing the violence, saving people, especially with the U.S. military, U.S. related, the police, liberating people, stopping bad guys, stopping aliens, stopping the invaders, right? Whereas, you know, the reality is you are the invader. You are the John McClane, right? Getting your ass beat down by, you know, a greater proportion of non-men and basically all non-white actual liberatory soldiers supporting a socialist, indigenous-led socialist project like Bolivia, like Vietnam in this time, an indigenous-led socialist project like Sun Yat-sen, who was a descendant, right? You know, coming back to the Hawaii thing, as you know, Hawaii, which you know, as Sun Yat-sen, right, who was commemorated and was a leader, who was organized in Hawaii, right, and Sun Yat-sen used the independent kingdom of Hawaii as a model to develop a technologically modern, politically independent, actively anti-imperialist, socialist China, right? By experiencing Hawaii's socialist, indigenous-led socialist country of Hawaii that took that inspiration to bring it to China. The Tongmeng, I've gone at length into a stream previously. I want the Tongmeng Hui, organized less than 40 miles from where I'm streaming right now. In fact, revolutionary movements. Again, that's a Hui. That's a political. As I said, Hui means many things: meeting, working together in a worker cooperative. It also means a revolutionary political action. The Tongmeng Hui. It's a Chinese. Again, it's a Chinese and Hawaiian word. Very important to emphasize that point. And again, these are socialist, non-white, indigenous-led action. The Chinese people are the indigenous people of China, by the way. I don't know if you know this, but these are the people. They're from there. They've always been from there, as opposed to Americans, Canadians, Australians who are not from there. And so the other tie is Queen Emma. So the mother of universal healthcare, who went on foot, as I said earlier, Emma, who went on foot to collect when it failed in the legislature. Emma went house to house to collect money to start the world's first universal free healthcare system, in which healthcare would be provided free of charge, etc., etc. Emma, she was the partner of the elected leader in this time. And the reason why it's queen and king is because of, as I said, Schrodinger's Western quantum nonsensical Western brain. We're the civilized country, yet we have horrible oppression and monarchy. We're the great, right? But we have diseducated population. We're enlightened, but we're diseducated. We're civilized, but we're barbarian savages, fucking pouring boiling soap down people's throats. Anyway. That's why it's Queen Emma. But anyways, the Chinese community was very proud of the event in giving Sun Yat-sen the award. And Emma was intended. So the mother of universal healthcare and the father of modern socialist, anti-imperialist, world-leading, advanced indigenous, technologically modern, anti-imperialist, economically developed, win-win cooperative China, Sun Yat-sen and Emma were, they literally, it's like the Hawaiians passed the torch on and said, okay, Chinese, good luck getting the opium warriors and the narco-trafficking asters and poors and London tea-sipping Windsorian capitalist colonialists out of the Yangtze. Good luck, China, because it looks like we're, and then America did eventually coup Hawaii. We could not stop the colonization and maintain the indigenous-led socialism long enough to gain. There were attempts to build Asia-Pacific federations. There was a group of Asian and Pacific Islander friends in defense of the UN Charter of the 1800s. Kalakaua literally he visited the first leader. Kalakaua was the successor to Kamehameha IV and Emma, who would go on to become the first head of state to ever circumnavigate the globe. The reason why he circumnavigated the globe is to understand the entire world's population. He went all through Asia. He went the entire Earth. After he went all up to, I think he went through parts of Afghanistan or the Central Asian continent, Persia, Europe. He visited Britain, France, everywhere. Russia. He was through Americas, Japan, because he was trying to build an international coalition that would resist imperialism, capitalism, and colonialism. Because Hawaii is there's less than 1 million people. Hawaii could never have done it alone. Just like even Cuba and a lot of these other countries, as strong as they have been, Vietnam, all these countries. Vietnam is one that is incredibly self-reliant and able to do a lot. But they have always worked together historically. This is not talked about, but these countries, Vietnam and Cuba, are constantly sending Vietnam sending millions of pounds of rice, Cuba sending doctors and medical equipment and vaccines and their expertise. China sending delegations, and Victor Gao was just in Cuba, assisting them with 5G and technological development, giving them jobs and advanced televisions, and building them to give them sources of revenue and tech transfer. Cuba sending China doctors, North Korea and Vietnam, North Korea and Cuba. There are collaborations between these countries, disproportionately Asian, East Asian, disproportionately non-white. And there was an attempt to build a coalition that would be a counter-hegemonic force led by Kalakaua in this time. Never fully succeeded. But again, our not our descendant, but our relative in China has taken this, and they are doing very well now. And that's why you and the Europeans and Americans all have their number one enemy as China, because they've succeeded at doing this. And so, so back to this. So the liberators. So again, I would posit, who are the true liberators? Who are the true? Was America saving Hawaiians from their mud huts and their backwardness and their no electricity, right? Who were the liberators? No, the liberators were not the Americans in Hawaii. The liberators were all the Hawaiian people, led by non-white, non-men. How about that? Like Queen Emma, who led the world in universal healthcare systems. Among other things, and also increased education, was big proponent of education. There's so much on all of these people that nobody will ever know about. So I have to spend like at least telling 10 to 15 people, maybe if I'm lucky, some true things. Again, these are the actual liberators, right? And the strategy may be different in each time. Like Hawaii, Bolivia is not necessarily fighting a war on the scale, let's look at New Malta, right? Here's another thing you should know. The Bolivian people are bringing military force into Caracas through Bolivia, in order to defend indigenous-led socialism, indigenous non-white global South-led socialism, and the people of Bolivia are bringing food to the soldiers as they're marching through. Here, I'll show you. This is a cool video, but this is from Kawashun News, but I found it through New Malta. But anyway, every town and village, locals provide free food and donations for Bolivia's social movements that are marching towards La Paz to defend democracy and President Luis Arce. And okay, now you see these are actual democracy. When you see a blue check mark, no opinion, NED, CIA, State Department cutouts, military-industrial complex propaganda, and all the diseducated idiots in the left, right, and center that talk about defending democracy in Hong Kong and Tibet, defending democracy in Cuba, and all this shit, SOS Cuba. That's bullshit. But, Kawashun News, the actual, again, indigenous-led socialist country news agency, it's a good chance that there might be actually saying true things about the defense of democracy. And so, and these are the Bolivian people are supporting their social movements in the march. And they also have their military force, by the way, and I brought this up before. The Bolivian Air Force, the head of the Bolivian Air Force, actually threatened on the night of the coup. They were trying to capture Evo Morales in the airport in I believe it was Cochabamba, or one of the cities in Bolivia. And the U.S. and Germany backed fascists, and Canadian and Elon Musk backed fascists in Bolivia, told the flight traffic controller to ground Evo Morales' aircraft in the airport in Bolivia, as Evo was trying to fly into Mexico. And the head of the the head of the Bolivian Air Force, the military head, who was on the side of Evo Morales, said, you're gonna let Evo's plane take off from that tarmac, or your cities will burn tonight. So there was direct military threat and force. In the global South and in South Central America, it's not patty cake games. Not to say that people don't suffer and die in North America and Canada, but it is much harder ball down there. Because there's less white, rich, spoiled brats around to feel bad about all those people that they're crushing. When you can 3,000, if you're only 50 miles, like the Wet'suwet'en are 750 miles from, Ryan Reynolds and John Horgan and rich white kids in Vancouver, right? Hipsters. But the Iraqi and the Iraqis and the Afghanis, they are 10,000 miles away from a lot of white people, the richest white people. So they can get blown up and killed in the dark. The Bolivians, they're far away from a lot of the people that call the shots in the world and all their spoiled little brat children, right? So the Bolivians, they can get gunned down in the street by the dozen by the Áñez administration, but they tend to, the Canadians try to do it. If you can create a Faraday cage from which no light, news report, journalistic journalistic takedown can escape in, let's say, Wet'suwet'en territory, in indigenous First Nations country in Canada. Then you can kill them but if you can't kill them and get away with it, then they don't just shoot. But in Bolivia, they can just shoot into the fucking crowds, and everybody thinks, oh, Evo Morales is a narco trafficker, like I watched when I watched Netflix, because all entertainment is politics, right? And I don't have to listen. I don't give a shit. And also, they speak Spanish. I don't know. I'm an idiot American, Canadian, European. I will support and not read in the Spanish language or even try to use a Google Translate. I will read AP and BBC and New York Times and CBC on Bolivia, because I'm a racist and I don't give a hell shit about anybody who doesn't speak English or is from North America, actually. So yeah, put Agnes is Hillary Clinton and liberating the people in my liberal Facebook group circa 2019. I don't care. So anyways, that's what happens in Bolivia though. So but the truth is, in Bolivia, they actually have indigenous-led socialism, and there's also they do not only just they do their historical rituals and their ecological ways of gathering food and growing and gathering medicine, but they also do technologically advanced modern things. In technologically modern, economically developed for the masses of people, politically advanced and racially equal countries like Bolivia, that when they're led under their socialist leadership, led by indigenous people, indigenous people also do AI powered bottle making factories. They manufacture, they do STEM, they make video games, like my friend Santo Alvaro Ojeda, who makes anti-capitalist cyberpunk, anti-colonial video games like 1870 Cyberpunk Forever, who is also an indigenous person from the regions that are also in Bolivia. I believe Guarani, which is one of the peoples that I believe some of them are indigenous people that are also in what's called Bolivia. Anyway, so these are what the actual. So this is also part of liberation. Is feeding people. Not always just shooting guns at everybody, but educating people. And who's doing that? It's those people, the Bolivians. You know what the ruling Western global North is doing? Not this. They're doing? Starving their people. Like 70 million people that were, as I said, were malnourished in 2020. So that's part of also what the true liberators are. Not the A-Team, right? Not the Avengers, not the Revengers, not the assassinators, credos, not the Call of Colonialism protagonists. I'm sorry, Call of Duty. The true liberators are those people that have actually fought against the actual empires, the actual invaders of Earth. They're not aliens. There's no space aliens invading Earth. The US and Europe and the Western capitalist countries would love aliens to show up right now and take the focus off of them. That's why they keep begging for UFOs to show up. Oh, please, Roswell, beam down and, please replace me as the number one actual global evil, headquartered in DC, Silicon Valley, Wall Street, backed by all of our poodles in Europe. Please, 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 aliens. Please, Independence Day, Will Smith antagonists, come down. Please come down and let us declare independence from the evil aliens in space before the global group of defense of the UN Charter and the global South, actual socialist countries, and people of color and the actual allies across the world in united in anti-capitalism, anti-imperialism, anti-racism, and all vectors of subjugation and oppression. Please, aliens, come down and stop them from uniting against us, the spoiled rich white pricks that run the West and the world. Please, aliens, replace us as the bad guy before they find out that we are the fucking pieces of shit that don't deserve to run anything, let alone international rules-based orders. Please, aliens, come down. Please, That's why they keep doing all these stories about aliens, is because they want to either the West and the U.S. and the Westerners want to kill themselves. That's why the suicide rate is going through the roof, especially U.S. military, 4 times higher than the average citizen. Don't join the U.S. military unless you want to kill yourself or have terrible healthcare, waiting 1,000-person tent city for your healthcare from the VA, and also kill innocent people and get crashed in a nuclear sub off the coast of Taiwan or Kinmen Island. But also, the U.S. wants to kill itself because that's why they have all the movies are about George Clooney going to Jupiter and Earth dying. They're about apocalypses. But the reason why is because they all hate themselves because they know they're the bad guy. It's a kind of self-reflective, subconscious, because they don't consciously say this, but it's a kind of self-recognition of their horribleness. And they're like, maybe we should be put out of our own misery. You know, it's like that scene, you know, like in Cowboy Bebop, like maybe I deserve to die. You know, like any of this. I talked about Cowboy Bebop last time, so I'm trying not to make the whole stream Cowboy Bebop, but we just finished it. So, you know, maybe I don't deserve to live. Maybe I am. It's like Spike Spiegel. Spike, everywhere you go, death follows. You know, that's like the West. Everywhere you go, death. Everywhere you go. Everywhere you go, extraction. Everywhere you go, pillaging. Everywhere you go, environmental degradation. Everywhere you go, suffering, colonialism. Everywhere you go, slavery, racism. Everywhere you go, America, South America. Everywhere you show up, you bring your pandemic. Everywhere you go, death by plague. Everywhere you go, weaponized COVID-19. Everywhere you go, Spanish flu. Everywhere you go, smallpox blankets, death, murder, slaughter. Maybe, you know, I still, 2,000 years later, I still have hope that the re-traumatizers, unhealed people of the descendants of the Aquilan Legion's trauma, I still believe that they can, but they don't. They just. I'd rather just be when a white upper middle class former Goldman Sachs stock trader turned DoD programmer playing Cyberpunk 2077 says, "I think, oh my God, I have lost faith in humanity and the world should burn." That's them going, "I've lost faith in my own ancestors and myself and my own country, and I hate myself and I should burn." I don't think that they need to burn. They choose to continue to burn themselves, try to kill themselves. Like literally suicide, you know, joining the U.S. military, joining the police, right? Just wrecking their lives, overdosing on fentanyl, 100,000 dead this year, just killing themselves. You know, part of the reason why they go, well, I'm gonna go out and get COVID. Some people I think it's just, well, I'm 65, I'm just gonna go out and get COVID-19 and I'm just gonna die because fuck everything. I deserve to die. You know, it's me and everyone that I've ever come from was useless pieces of shit, and we're all liars. You know, and it's like the stock traders diving out of a flaming World Trade Center building, the actual financial terrorists of the world. You know, bidding the price of rice up to $100 a grain, causing global destruction. You know, all the people who, lost money in 0809, jumped out the window. You know, that didn't have a golden parachute because they were on the top story. You know, with Jamie Dimon and Lloyd Blankfein. You know, all those people that jumped out of that building, they're like, I am a terrible human being. I deserve to die. I'm the devil's advocate as a lawyer for a giant corporation. I deserve to die. I am a stormtrooper with Excel spreadsheet and BlackBerry characteristics, trading stocks, defrauding all of the world, including my own customers as a Goldman Sachs and all the investors that I admitted in court, but I own the court, so I don't get. And I am a horrible person. And, you know, I'm going to jump out of this window and kill myself. That's the entire West right now. That's why they're all like, oh my God, they can't, because it's hard to say out loud. I am a descendant of this trauma and this barbarism, which capitalism is but merely the final iteration of the racism, the colonialism, all of this. And I continue to not want to face who I am and who my ancestors are, who my whiteness is, what I've done, all of my crimes. I don't want to come clean on that because that's scary. It's hard. And everyone around me and all of my economic well-being all is tied up in it. As a professor, as a corporate executive, as a marketer, as a manager, as a even a not even well-paid manager at a shitty tech company, as a programmer at Boeing. I don't want to face everything. I'll throw some shade at Bezos, but I can't come clean on all of it because it's too hard. It's too hard. I declare independence. I wrap myself in the flag. I don't like billionaires, and I want some health care, but I'm gonna stop. America's good. I'm gonna wrap myself in that flag, and I'm gonna get sick and kill myself. Because I know inside that this flag wrap patriot left is not going to solve it. But it's too scary. It's too hard. I'm a coward. I prioritize my own selfish short life expectancy and before I die from wildfires, COVID-19, pandemic, and economic inequality, and dying and drowned floods as the bridges that don't get built back better because 90% of all the investment goes straight into private equity firms like Lloyd Blankfein that ate my fucking mortgage and my mommy and daddy's 401k and all the infrastructure. And I hate myself so much. I hate myself so much that I'm just going to go out with a bang. I'm just going to go get sick and die. I'm going to go out with a bang. I'm just going to back right-wing reactionary, and I'm going to get $10,000 making shitty YouTube videos, retweeting garbage in my Instagram, and just lying and being a piece of shit, staying in the U.S. military, George Floyding black people for money. I'm going to keep selling out to the empire because it's too hard. It's too hard to truly face who I actually am. So I'm going to keep pretending to be Captain Liberation. When that's who you're not. That's not who you are. You're that sad little tail between your legs, John McCain lying about how fucked up he was, so he can get a career in the U.S. Congress, making millions of dollars. Lying about his experiences in Vietnam. Right, backing global military-industrial complex, continued colonialism. As a fucking coward, just like that little tail between his legs, white boy. Getting fucking marched by an actual non-white woman, indigenous socialist, actual freedom fighter. That's you. Anyways. So, that's universal healthcare. I mean, so I really hope that one day, a major point back to the disease one, because I didn't finish that one. That was a very important one. Back to the disease again. You should follow Kawashu News. Okay, get some actual fucking news in you. I look at some of the so-called left media that comes out of some Discords. I'm like, what the fuck are you even reading? What is this garbage? What is this fucking like white Denmark lady saying that Taiwan should be liberated and that Chinatown should be burned? I'm like, what the fuck? You anarchist Denmarkian vegan. Leftist, socialist, fucking like flower emojis and shit. I'm like, okay. And then what are you putting out there? Chinatown should be burned? What are you putting out there? Cuba needs to be saved? What are you putting out there? Vietnam looks like Vietnam will side with the West. What do you what? Fucking goddamn it! Follow some goddamn actual people with goddamn education. I mean, I'm not saying that that's all those people, but I mean, if that's you, I mean, fucking get your shit straight. Feudalism, slavery, Disneyland capitalism. These are not like progression. This is continued Western, white, racist, sexist, hierarchical barbarism with slightly different flavors and different clothing styles. Some of them have a little more gold, ermine and crown jewels that consist of $400 million diamonds stolen from Africa with no equity and no fucking electricity, like what was in the Queen's fucking forehead, right? And then there's capitalism, in which you have $200 billion stuck in Shiba Inu stocks and bidding up the price of fucking U.S. semiconductors and GM trucks, right? But I mean, there's not really different systems. It's not like Queen doesn't have the Queen is a multi-hundred millionaire, the current Queen, who's still feudalist in continued feudalist Britain, in that sense. And capitalism is, as I often argue, is in Neofeud argues, is shadow feudalism. It's a feudalism where the aristocrats hide behind Western liberal, equal, egalitarian, equal opportunity choice democracy, but it's the same basic family members. Hands full of selected people who show up to the Versailles in-house palace. It's called the G7. It's called the hedge fund in Vegas. The social mobility in the United States is worse than in Europe. So even in the more feudalist land, there's this whole concept of that you've progressed. You haven't progressed one fucking lick. You've gotten worse, if anything. At least in Europe, you're only fucking killing each other and enslaving yourselves. And then after feudalism, you come out and you do global colonial capitalism, imperialism. You're fucking the whole planet. You haven't progressed. You've gotten worse. Instead of 800 million people, you went from feudalism to hurting fucking 8 billion people. What progress is this? This is the nonsense. I can't stand these fucking Western left fucking book worshippers. God damn it. What progress? You should have stayed in Europe, and you stayed in Europe and just be feudal to yourself, and they will come rescue you from all of your nasty, brutish, short little Hobbesian, Leviathan, bullshit artists, fucking Louis the Sun King worshipping selves. We save you from your motherfucking self if you could have stayed your ass in Europe for the last 200 years. We would have already had space, fully automated luxury, indigenous-led gay space travel with the Hawaiian space va'a. We're already ahead in all these other, again, submarines. We would have been in space already with the international mutual win-win cooperation without capitalism, led by indigenous cultures, non-cis white hierarchical bullshit, stopping the vast numbers of hidden figures from doing their maximum potential to in science, technology, engineering, mathematics, etc. We would have already been in space. We could have saved your idiot asses in Europe, but you had the goddamn gall to spread your plague and your ideological plague of capitalism, racism, and colonialism all over the motherfucking earth. You should have stayed your ass in Europe. We would have been liberated by 1950. It's going to take us a little longer now because you fucked it up big time. So anyway, we have to get out from under your bullshit so we can get back onto doing normal human civilization. So you've delayed the inevitable success of normal human indigenous civilization by a century. That's what you've done. And incredibly and almost incalculably increased the pain and suffering and death of humans and other sentient species and the mother of Earth. That's what you've done. Never talk again. They tried the same on Native Hawaiians, but we used the contact tracing, lockdowns, and vaccines to prevent white biological warfare from completely wiping out our people. Thank God that we invented universal healthcare, contact testing, and tracing, and used these measures that you can't even fucking use to stop your own people from dying in Austria, one of the wealthiest per capita places on earth. In 200 years later, you can't even do what we, the indigenous socialist Native Hawaiians, could do to stop you from exterminating us. You should thank God that we had the ability to liberate ourselves for 100 years out from under your colonial, racist, capitalist, Western barbarism, your Euro barbarism, so that we could give China the chance to get out from under their shit. One chance, I'm not to say they're good, but to get the possibility of rejuvenating and undoing their fifth of the Earth population, so that there is an outside chance of this. Of people surviving and not suffering your disgusting, sad barbarism for the rest of the continuation of whatever remains of this mudball. That's what white people like to talk about, the mudball and how sad and nasty and brutish and short and the motherfucking life is. It was fine before you burned everyone to ash and caused massive global wobbling jet stream mass flooding and made it mud. Before your non-ecological thinking, non-seven generational thinking, industrial revolution, climate disaster, privileging individuals and profit over the earth and all the other people, caused the mud slides that are killing you in Germany. We were doing okay, So you should, and you should thank the Native Hawaiians and all of the other indigenous people that fought as hard as we could, and the Vietnamese people and the Cuban people that fought as hard as we could to survive so that we can build a group of friends in defense of the UN Charter, indigenous-led, actual socialist, normal human, advanced civilization to save your ass. Because you sure as fuck ain't gonna do it. You sure as fuck ain't gonna do it, Europe. What are you doing in Europe? What are you doing in Europe? Huh? What the fuck are you doing in Europe? With your non-55% of your discretionary spending going to the military industrial complex, huh? What are you doing in Europe as Omicron breaks out because of you? What are you doing? This is what you're doing. We are going to save you because We love humanity as much as you hate yourself. Let alone your fellow white people. Let alone how much you hate Asians, black and brown people, and women and gay people. Anyways, so this is how we stopped you from killing us. You know, about a century after the Thanksgiving, is by advancing to a point under socialism led by indigenous people to where we could stop fully being wiped out by your smallpox weaponized bioterror. The thing you're blaming China for right now with your Wuhan flu. It's the America flu. Okay, the Spanish flu was the Kansas U.S. military flu, and the number one vector for the COVID-19 is the U.S. military. It's the U.S. military. It's the Western fucking flu. It's always been the Western fucking flu. And your back plane is the Euro fucking flu. You disgusting. Wash your ass. Wash your fucking hands. Social distance. Think of other people maybe. One time. Get a fucking shot. Jesus Christ. I feel like I'm talking to children, but that's because I am. There's a history of scapegoating Asians for the disease when its white empire is weaponizing infection that results in decimation of populations. White ships and crew carrying smallpox in the 1800s, the Quinta specifically, was one of them. Vax card fakers of the U.S. military, that is the number one vector for Spanish flu and COVID plague. As I already showed this one, this is where our contact tracers, which stopped COVID-19 from spreading beyond a few hundred people in Honolulu, similar to what China did in Wuhan, similar to what they've done in countless cities with 0 Uyghur deaths due to COVID-19 because of how strong their measures have been. We did the same thing in Hawaii successfully. The number one vector of the COVID-19 pandemic and other pandemics, I would argue basically all of them, including the biological warfare, including dropping of cholera, malaria, and mosquitoes laden with other destructive diseases, intentionally dropping bombs with biological disease-laden insects into Korea, into Asia. You know who's actually used chemical warfare and biological warfare against civilian populations? You know, war crimes and shit like this. The things that they like to accuse all kind of countries on the pretext, like in Syria, to go bomb the fuck out of it because it's in defense of the UN Charter or self-determination. You know the United States, the West. You know who else? Japan. You know who that is? Collaborate with the United States. Mustard gas on the indigenous people of Taiwan. You know the people who U.S. is saying we should liberate Taiwan. You know who they are? The descendants of Japanese capitalist imperialists who banned the language of the indigenous people, the Hakka people, and had a program to force the indigenous people to adopt ancestors, fictional Japanese ancestors, and renounce their entire culture, renounce their flag, renounce everything, and become good little Japanese subjects. So it's Japanese mustard gas on the Hakka indigenous people in Taiwan, and also against the they're all technically all Chinese and Chinese related. They also Han people who were subjugated and also had their own ancestors banned. And the descendants of those people are Tsai Ing-wen, who love Trump. They're like the Agnes right-wing fascist of Taiwan. And so you should when you support the liberation of Taiwan coming from, because you probably will, because you're going to be diseducated by your fucking Radio Free Asia any second now. Even the people with university degrees calling themselves anarchists from fucking Denmark and Norway and fucking Austria and Canada and the US. I mean, you're going to get on the internet and you're going to say bullshit. Just remember, the bullshit you're saying is you're supporting right-wing people who want to, if you're gay or not a man, you're the kind of people that, kind of hope that you remain a second-class citizen, Like all the World Uyghur Congress. Anyway, we don't have time for all of this. The military is a pathogen transmitter, a major pathogen transmitter. And if you look at the actual numbers historically, they have one of the highest. The military itself doesn't even monitor who has COVID-19. I know military because you know why? Because just as the Americans, right? And the Europeans. They weren't really Americans at this time. They're Europeans that they've always been. The Europeans who brought the smallpox blankets weaponized the plague to exterminate the indigenous population, so do the Americans, the current torch carrier of the Roman trauma, continue to weaponize pandemics. That's why there's zero social distancing in mess halls, on ships, in barracks. There's no testing. Like Tripler Army Hospital, I know somebody in Hawaii who literally was in the military. He said, I wanted to see if I had COVID. I did a test. They didn't even bring the test back. They're just basically if I ask you military servicemen and women, the ones that are currently the war criminal, genocidal. Again, if you're in the U.S. military, you're a horrible person. You're a murderer. You're a child killer. You're a piece of shit. You should quit. But if you ask any of the ones who are currently in the U.S. military or know someone in the U.S. military, if they're honest, they're probably not. They're probably just genocidal murderers who want some money and GI Bill. But if you find an honest soldier, you're going to find people who they're going to tell you, oh yeah, basically we're just pretending like everything is a cold. So the U.S. military is rammed full of it. They brought it in Okinawa. They brought it into Hawaii. We're in PAC. We had 10 times the cases in the middle of military operations in Hawaii as troops were disembarking. I've gone over this at length. So it's important for people to know. This is part of the continued COVID-19 weaponized to exterminate indigenous populations. Weaponized for whenever they accuse someone of vaccine diplomacy, that's the only reason why they're going to give anyone any shots. They gave Vietnam 15 million. Vietnam said, fuck you, America. This doesn't make up for all of your continued posturing. The war you're trying to start with China, you think we don't see what you're doing? Anyway, this is a person who was faking their vaccine record card. Again, Europe, so-called enlightened Europe is doing what? Burning their country, burning their fucking country to not get vaccine and vaccine just proofs that you're getting a goddamn vaccine. Oh, my freedom. Yeah, it's always the white dudes who don't actually get the police on their neck, like that are actually the ones that are always asking for the freedom. You notice that? It's because freedom in the West and the United States is for white, straight, cis guys. That's what America was built for, And slightly, sometimes it's rich people, and sometimes it's more white people. But that's who it's for. The rich, the white, the male, the dudes. And that's who's out there demanding their fucking freedom to go be oppressors. It's not, you don't see indigenous people who actually are in grave danger of being killed by the police, and black people being grave danger of being killed by police. Black Lives Matter activists, right? Indigenous people they're not, who indigenous people are doing? 98% of the Blackfoot are vaccinated. It's the highest vaccination rate if they're a country in the world. You know what they're not doing? You know what they're doing? They're not asking for the freedoms. They're doing what indigenous, normal human, which is socialist civilization, win-win cooperative mutual aid, aloha, kuleana, pono civilizations do. They're just like taking care of other people, not being selfish, spoiled, rich, white fucking pricks, like all these Europeans. Even just the working class ones who are just wannabe feudal lords, right? Just like America, the first serf of the white American is his wife, and that's why, because you don't have access to mountains based on blood dynasty of hundreds of thousands of serfs as a king or a royal. You come to America, your serf is your wife, and then your next serfs are your children, and that's why you abuse your children. Legal for a man to kill his children, a white man in America. So, for a long time. And so, that's what the freedom is for. And so so vaccine freedom is freedom to continue this system. It's just garbage. It's just nonsense. It's just bullshit. It's a bunch of crying, screaming little children who I have to routinely try to educate, and I will not reach enough, and I will fail. But because I care so much about all of these people not killing themselves, killing everyone else too, but also killing themselves, I'm going to keep trying. Under Hawaiian law, Hawaiians had universal health care at no charge through Queen's Hospital, which received funding from the Hawaiian people and the government. Early into occupation, America stopped the funding. So after we had the world's first universal healthcare system, that Wikipedia, which is a libertarian capitalist military industrial complex branch called all of Silicon Valley, which is a branch of the U.S. empire, worked directly with their contracts for the billions of dollars of money that changes hands between executives and Wall Street, straight to the Pentagon and straight back into Silicon Valley. The universal healthcare system that we don't get recognition for, because there's no education system in the West, also was abolished or attempted. They attempted to destroy it by stopping the funding for it. That's another vector of how the United States committed genocide against indigenous people of Hawaii, by the way, is attempting to make in whole or in part the conditions of life, degrading the conditions of life of those people. That is part of a genocide, and this is one of them. Another one was banning our language or culture. Another one was exterminating unknown amounts of Hawaiians and incineration of all of the Chinatown and forcing us into the fire and the conflagration. That's another one. But banning of the world's first universal healthcare system, or attempted to, they failed to fully destroy it. Queen system still exists to this day, in spite of continued colonial illegal military occupation. That's really another victory of the true liberators of the earth, right? Is the successful continued existence of the Queen's medical system against the United States illegal military and fraudulent annexation occupation, right? Is a successful continued liberation of the Native Hawaiians. Because there's another version of 2021 where there is no Queen system that actually helping a lot of people who don't have a lot of money. If you actually come and you show the Queen's Charter and you know everything about the history of Hawaii and who you are and what we are about, Queens will still treat you. Queens will still give you the treatment that you need, or do its absolute best too. As the world's first universal healthcare system, as Germany still degrades the health of Black and Muslims, as the universal healthcare for Sweden, it doesn't count. What good does universal healthcare in Sweden do when you're too busy blowing up Muslims and reducing the health of non-white people in Asia to zero? What the hell good is the universal healthcare system in Sweden when you're destroying the livelihoods of Uyghurs? Huh? Swedish with H&M and your boycotts? Huh? Racists? I would argue that there is no universal healthcare unless it's internationalist universal health and livelihood for all. So nowhere in Europe has any real healthcare system. You're all death care. European has a global death care system by backing the U.S. military. That's what you have. And then you have nice treatment for white people. There's no such thing as universal healthcare in Europe. You're bullshit artists. Anyways, you failed to copy our Hawaiian socialist system properly. That's what you've done. You failures. And that's why y'all gonna die, COVID-19. So, that's who that's who the liberators are. And sorry, I keep losing this thread. Yeah, this one. Okay, so finally, there is no finally. I'm just gonna keep screaming at you. More on Hawaii's world's first universal healthcare system started 25 years ago. So if you want to read more about that, you can read this thread. If you want to read more about when we had the highest, I've gone over this in multiple streams. I'm not going to go over the whole thing again. And then there's Neofeud, which is a game about all of this process. In a less directly, today I'm feeling less charitable because of how frustrated I've been for the last week watching this variant come out as nonsense is coming out of every Western white fucking mouth. And then either nonsense or throwing their hands up in, why is humanity doing this? Why are we in the hellscape? People that I thought were fucking some kind of educated, had some kind of decency, some kind of intelligence, they're like doing this. All white. All white or white inside. And it's just like very frustrating. So it's already 2:30, so I gotta get off. This has nothing to do with this has that very little to do with Contra. But these are some scenes from some random video games that I meant to show and I didn't show. This is Hunt Down. I played all the way through this game. I find it very comedic and entertaining and funny. What I want to do at some point in the future is I'm working on some games where you play, Contra, you play, two dudes who are fighting to stop alien invasions. You're basically running around platforming, shooting guns, blowing up, xenomorph-like little critters in the jungle. If you're fighting like weird aliens that look like UFOs, and then I'm trying to get some Contra in-game screens. You got, this is one of the big space enemies that blows up the, it's like the Independence Day space major threat inflation coming from space. This is great. Greatest is another one of these retro shooters, but I like these games. Obviously, I've said that several times in the stream. I was saying like I want to make a game where you actually play not muscly white American or any NATO or U.S. allied troops, aircraft, soldiers, Air Force, where you play the people who actually liberated the people. That's kind of what I was thinking about when I first made this image. And so that's something that I'm currently working on. It's not like I have to make Neofeud 2. So this is not really, it's a thing I'm not really working on. I should say I'm thinking about it as something that might happen. And, but also I think it's something that, is always worth considering, that it was the Vietnamese who did fight out to the death of over 1 million of their people, right? To the suffering of their people for decades, more than you will ever know, right? As you cry about taking a shot. And the Vietnamese willingly, with zero, very important, that's another important thing. There were no anti-vaccine rallies in Hawaii. There were no anti-medical, there were no anti-vax. COVID there was no smallpox is a 5G conspiracy. There's no, the Black Plague is a little flu. The Hawaiians, the people and their government and their cooperative businesses together work together to stop smallpox from exterminating and other diseases from fully exterminating the population in a way that it could. To be clear, the diseases did take the lives of many Hawaiians, but they had in multiple instances limited the spread of these viruses using universal healthcare, which we invented, using vaccines and using other technologies. These are human technologies. And also using quarantines that Europeans and Westerners to this day and capitalist white countries choose to not follow because they're selfish, because they have not undone everything I've just said. And so, we have to, that's who I want this to be. And most of them are women, to be clear. Most of the people that love this is not dudes. They're definitely not white, and they're mostly not dudes. That struggle to liberate the continued struggle to liberate not only the Vietnamese people and the Chinese people and the Cuban people and the Bolivian people and all of the African people, the continued struggle to liberate all these people is not over. It's not always fought with guns and sides. It's not fought generally in side-scrolling shooters, although I'm going to try when I make my anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist, decolonial side-scrolling shooter where you beat the fuck out of some fucking American-coded colonizers. You're going to fight, you're going to beat the shit out of the U.S. Captain Utopia, basically. That's what you're going to do. And there are going to be a bunch of racist, the anti-vaxxer is going to be one guy. Like the crying white lady saying, "Oh, please don't traumatize me by making me witness how much this hurts when I napalm you." She's like dropping napalm from her starter shirt onto indigenous people and going, "Oh no, I can't see your trauma. This hurts me." Right? And crying. And then she calls the police, and the police, I'm thinking of like an action comedy game. She calls the police into like a space Vietnam, and the police come and try to arrest you for making her feel bad by kneeling on your neck. And then you have to kill all of those police in the space video game, obviously. And then that will be, another way of trying to educate and heal the brains of, I don't know, some people. I hope Neofeud helped at least some few thousand people. At least 10,000 people have the game somewhere in a Steam library or an itch somewhere. So, and many more have seen the game or heard of and seen the playthrough. So I hope that has helped in some way, and I hope that these streams have helped in some way. I'm not just in these streams. I'm less able to hold back today for reasons, but I'm not in the streams just to, blow off steam. But sometimes today it kind of was more of that. But I want people to choose to do the harder but necessary thing in their life. That in the long run, 7 generations from now, I want you to try to see from indigenous eyes, not from the limited, the fogged Western left glasses darkly that you look through. I want you to see it more clearly, what you have to do, and then try to make the right decisions. You know? And part of that is like going through everything that's ever been put out in the Western capitalist and allegiance world, and pointing out where all of the blemishes and mottled bits of phlegm and blood are on those dark glasses that you look through. And one of them is everything you've ever seen. You know, Captain America, just who's in it. One thing I appreciate. Finally, I should turn this off, but Cowboy Bebop people, I say, Silver Spook, when you talk about the problematic things about Cowboy Bebop or things I don't like about Cowboy Bebop, a lot of people are making some good clout and money talking shit about Cowboy Bebop. I don't really care like how good or not good it, and how allegiant or not allegiant, and how meticulously it adheres to the original, you know? Like I went off of a lot about it, but I would say, you know, one thing I do appreciate about Cowboy Bebop is that, you know, it has some things that are questionable. I know, you know, Andre Dermis, also known as Q, I know is not the biggest fan of it. But anyways, I was watching Luna on Andre on the you know, log off already. But, you know, one thing that I do appreciate about, you know, it doesn't adhere directly. Some negatives, it's not the same as the anime. That could be negative or positive, depending on how you interpret that. But one thing I will say about Cowboy Bebop is that at least, you know, it's you know, representation representation of non-white peoples and indigenous peoples doesn't equate, or even queer or women doesn't necessarily equate to telling their stories and having economic and storytelling and production sovereignty. But I do appreciate that, you know, it's to me, I try not to take it too seriously. If I look at it too seriously, I'll probably be more frustrated. I'm trying to just watch Cowboy Bebop as entertaining, and as a jumping off point for this one show. I'm like, I just want to watch it for its you know, it's got I mean, to be honest, it's an anime, okay, and it's kind of, you know, it's kind of how should I say this, you know, it's just a fun show. That's the nice way to say it. It's just a fun show, you know. It has some interesting things. What I do like about it is that it does have better representation in it. It isn't propagating military industrial complex propaganda as far as I can see. That's really rare for shit that comes out of LA. You know? It doesn't deal with Earth that much. You know, I could easily see how they make a lot more military, and U.S. military gets its fingers up inside its ass and warps it. It's mostly just, it's gangster, like it's like you know, it's like it's Pulp Fiction, Blade Runner wannabe, Japanese nerd action cartoon bullshit. You know, it's just, you know, and it's just, it's got a lot of funny witty banter. It's got cool set designs. It's got fun action scenes and kung fu and gun fu, and you know, it's not hypersexualized. And there were some negative things in it in terms of some characters were more whitewashed that people were not happy about, and that's valid. There are some you know, there's some questionable people who own slaves, or I guess it's kind of suggested that they do. You know, it's not super serious. But I use this show as a jumping off point to talk about cartels and the Western gangster world that the gangster colonial capitalist world that I've been talking about. But I appreciate that it's not doing as much damage as, let's say, Falcon and Winter Soldier is doing. It's not doing as much damage as, say, I don't know, Hawkeye is doing by backing U.S. military bullshit, as every Disney fucking and every Marvel shit is doing. You know, or, you know, it's not doing as much as Captain America is doing by making America look good. Just whenever America makes movies that involve anything remotely related to America, it's going to be shit. Because, you know, it's people, like Hawaii's people and government together, people, business, and government in Hawaii together work together to prioritize people and lives and anti-imperialism and socialism and equality over profit. The people, businesses, and government of America work together to benefit white supremacy, American exceptionalism, and the U.S. military. They all work together in their star-spangled banners on their fucking clothes in the left, in the right, center, and unfortunately a lot of the left. So, you know, I appreciate that Cowboy Bebop is not about that, you know. It's just ultra-violent people trying to look cool and wearing skinny jeans that are pantsuits and with big hair, and people that are related to Joe Valentine, called Faye Valentine. Anyway, so that's a, so anyways, I'm just doing that because somebody asked me to comment on it. But back to this thing, you know, to end it with this is the, you know, the true liberators are people like, again, Luna. Oh, I don't want to tell all of Luna's story of Vietnam. You should just follow Luna, okay? Watch Luna's videos, learn about what the Vietnamese people follow the non-law collective, right? Who are debunking mountains of bullshit about Vietnam. The Cuban and Vietnamese are the Cuban. You should know what's happening. America's still trying to overthrow Cuba, as they always are. Also, Chow Collective, as always, you know, as people that, you know, are as the descendants of people who are carrying on the indigenous socialist-led project, and they're kindly not telling it to you face as strongly as I'm telling it to your face. The Chow Collective, but also, you know, they do debunk a lot of nonsense that is about America, that is about the Western barbarists' number one enemy, that is the actual, you know, Captain China is the superhero of the world. You know, you know, if we're honest, it should be Captain China, Captain Vietnam, Captain Cuba should be the Avengers. But we don't live in a world where honesty is perpetuated in English, French, or Spanish. We have Radio Free Asia and the BBC instead. And we have AAA game companies like EA, Activision. That's all we have. We have garbage. So follow Chow Collective and then get 0.001% of what you need. As another liberators, you know, and you know, all of anybody who's been on the Silver Spook streams, right? Oh, by the way, one more PSA. We did have a Silver Spook stream last week. I know this is going on. This is going on for some time, but we did have one Silver Spook stream last week that is also maybe worth checking out. I am trying to make a space that is less full Silver Spook than I am right now. The Decolonial, if you want a more chill stream, the Decolonial Thanksgiving is Lost Sioux, Indigenous survivor of Canada's genocide in the 60s scoop. Shaw Merriway. Shaw didn't unfortunately get to show up because of basically it was just technical difficulties. Phone and connection to Discord was not happening. Due to, in part, I think partially, Shaw has had phone difficulties due to previous encounters as another liberator. You know that these are liberators as well. The indigenous people of Turtle Island, Wet'suwet'en, the Sioux, and Anishinaabe, all the indigenous peoples are also right now fighting the fight for you. 2% of the carbon reduction, 2% of the population, 25% of reduction of the U.S. and Canada's fossil fuel and carbon emissions. So these are the real actual fucking fighters to their own death. They're dying every day. There's no justice, you know. There's a lot of white anarchists in their collective in Denmark tweeting on the internet. You know what's not happening when they're sharing Radio Free Asia? These so-called leftists in Europe and in Canada, these white fucking vegan clowns, imperialist vegans. You know what's not happening? Them getting dead, them getting shot and killed and then buried on an unmarked grave, like the missing and murdered indigenous women and non-men, and the missing indigenous people that are getting killed disproportionately. Again, it's a lot of women. You know there's a legitimate actual fucking fight when you have a better proportion of non-men and women fucking fighting it. And it's Slato is the hereditary chief, also known as Molly. Is it Wickham? Shoot, am I getting it wrong? But yeah, Molly, who is recently got arrested for at a Canadian assault rifle point by the RCMP. You have a liberatory struggle when you have not just a bunch of toxic asshole capitalist or just random dudes showing up, gunning each other on, and then sexually abusing women like they do in Asia, like in Thailand, and making movies joking about it, like Me Love You Long Time in Full Metal Jacket. And that's how you know. Anyway, so follow this one, Saber, also our friend Kemi, and our other friend who is indigenous of heritage, that is indigenous Luchuan, which is also Okinawan, and our other indigenous African friend who is in the UK. Saber's from Uganda, by the way. You know how Uganda is doing under European continued colonization? Terribly. So, you can check that out. Neofeud is on sale. And, again, everything that we do here, again, today I was feeling less charitable. But if you want it in a more entertaining, edutaining, and all of the above form, what I talk about on these streams, but also you just want cyberpunk adventure games like Disco Elysium with cyberpunk characteristics, anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist, left, indigenous created at a worker cooperative without bosses and landlords sort of video game that isn't AAA capitalist garbage like Cyberpunk 2077 that is never going to get fucking debugged, apparently. Looking at you, CD Projekt, billionaire executive Red, exploiting your workforce. So that's at Neofeud. The game is made. It's on sale. And if you want to support us, do check the game out. If you have a second to leave even a short review, if you liked it. If you're just mad because I said true things and they upset you, because you haven't interrogated all of your internal contradictions, then I'm sorry. I'll try to be a little more sugar coated next time, or maybe I won't. But if you enjoyed the games, you want to help us out, then you can help us out by leaving even a very short review. And it does help us to increase the likelihood that the game will be discovered. Neofeud, I know I threw some shade at Marx. I'm not throwing, you should read Das Kapital. I'm not saying don't read Das Kapital. I'm saying fuck that racist bullshit that he said. But also, Neofeud is a multi-dimensional representation of Das Kapital. I don't know if you knew this. But Neofeud is a multi-dimensional representation of Das Kapital. I can't find the review. Somebody left a really good review where it specifically talks about Marx's Das Kapital, and how Neofeud is a multi-dimensional representation of it. Anyways, can't find it. Who cares? But yeah, so do leave a review. Also, you can support us at itch. So if you don't have Neofeud, if you don't have Windows, but you have Mac or Linux, you can also get Neofeud for Mac or Linux at itch.io for digital rights management free. You can also get it without installing Steam if you don't like Steam. And on it, you can also get the game without, I already said, without installing Steam. You can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Neofeud. At patreon.com/Neofeud, you can give us ongoing support. Looks like somebody just became a patron, so thanks a lot for that. See, apparently, sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, how many snowflake Euro wannabe leftists that are not, do I want to piss off and then they're gonna thumbs my stream down, or unlike it. I see you doing this. That's why I'm talking to you directly. I know this too because we're watching. But then I know that people are gonna not like it. I don't care if I get fucking, this channel gets I don't need the 10,000, 500,000 subscribers. The fuck, I don't give a shit, right? So I don't care if people thumb it down. That's okay. You thumb it. If I piss you off, you do what you got to do. But then I know sometimes people, they get upset, but then they come back because they think about it and they're like, I might research a little bit and they go, oh shit. So where Spook was it making this shit up? Sometimes I'm hyperbolic, but I try. I'm not always right. I'm wrong all the time. I'm wrong at least 3 times a day. But I'm not trying to make shit up to gaslight you. If I think something is wrong, I'm gonna say it's wrong, and if I think something's right, I'm gonna say it's right. And if I get more education on it, every time I listen to Luna, and also Holly a lot of the time. If I really listen to non-men's and people in the global South, especially non-men, non-white global South people, I'm usually getting a lot smarter. But what I'm not gonna do is come on here and just say bullshit, which is what most of YouTube and the Western social media clout chaser world is. All the Vampire Castle. They complain about Vampire Castle, and then they make shows about doing it, and then they do Vampire Castle, and then they sell out. And it's a bunch of bullshit. And it makes me sick. And that's part of why I do these streams, is because they make me sick. And I want to feel less sick And when I do these streams, I feel less sick for a little bit. So, thanks a lot to Nova. So, Nova, I'm going to make thanks to all these people on this list. Okay. Thanks a lot to Nova for the support. And, we appreciate everybody on the list. We are, again, when you become, I'll do this now, since when you become a patron, you get access to the Silver Suit Discord, you get access to Neofeud 2 updates, what I'm currently working on. You get access to, I already said the Discord, and then also you get access to giving us ongoing financial support to keep doing the educational game development and housing, feeding, and clothing as many people as possible without bosses and without landlords at the Silver Spook Cooperative on illegally occupied Hawaii, supporting other Native Hawaiians like myself against our continued attempt at erasure. Let's be clear. Part of the reason why I'm very upset is because there's a continued attempt to destroy me and my language and make me homeless and make my friend and Positive Synergy and everyone else homeless, houseless, and kill the Indian or save the man. And so part of when I get upset and we ask for support is because nobody gonna support me. I can't get my parents and my family members who have Hawaiian ancestry, who pledge allegiance to the American flag and work for the U.S. military. They get $200,000 a year. You know what I don't get? I don't get anything. So that's another reason why we do ask for the support. And that's also why I get fucking pissed off, is because I watch my family continue to say, we're all American now. And it makes me sad. You can also follow at SilverSpook Games at Octodon.social on Mastodon. Mastodon is a decentralized, non-capitalist, controlled, federated social media platform similar to Twitter, but without billionaires, Wall Street, Silicon Valley, and other imperial clowns deciding what you see and what you don't see. However, while we have access to the Death Star satellites, you can also follow SilverSpook Guy. SilverSpook Guy is my personal Twitter account, and where I post random 80s video games, actual Liberators, and when Neofeud goes on sale. No, mostly I post my personal stuff, but also you can follow mostly the games related stuff at SilverSpook Games Twitter, which is another Twitter account minus the E in silver, SilverSpook Games, where I post about what I'm currently working on, when Neofeud 2's updates, when Neofeud 1 goes on sale, like it's right now, it's on sale. And you can also follow Terminus C. Terminus C is Terminus Cyberstar. Terminus Cyberstar is another low-poly cyberpunk immersive sim in the vein of late 90s PC games like Deus Ex 1 and System Shock 2. If you like games like Cyberpunk 2077, but you don't want to support giant capitalist abusers that are anti-trans, like CD Projekt is, also hurt their employees by making them work 100-hour crunches and exploiting most of their labor value under capitalism, and you don't want to support giant mega corporations that ridiculously make games supposedly criticizing giant mega corporations, it's kind of hypocritical, don't you think? Kind of ridiculous. Fuck CD Projekt Red. Anyways, you can Terminus Cyberstar is a cyberpunk RPG that is currently under development and is going to be coming out sometime in the near future. I was hoping I could stuff this into all of my friends and comrades' Steam libraries and shove some class and decolonial consciousness up inside them. But, that might be inside their Steam library. That sounds kind of gross. But anyways, you can follow Terminus C and learn about all of these. It's also, Terminus Cyberstar is also linked in the Neofeud world as well, in the universe. And is a game that I'm looking forward to checking out. And it's made by a handful of artists, right? I am the lead director / developer of what's called the Game Design Bible, or basically the content director / lead writer. And it's going to be nice to see all this coming to fruition that I've been thinking about and writing about for some time. However, you can also join the Terminus Cyberstar Discord at that link there. Follow Terminus Cyberstar. I already said follow it on Twitter. Sorry, my brain is not fully here because the sleep is leaving me. Anyway, it's the end of the stream. I got to go eat food. It's almost 3. Keep your mirror shades polished. Be excellent to each other. Listen to you freaking indigenous people that are leading actual socialism in the world, especially the East Asian ones and the South American and the Central American, all of them, but especially the ones that have shown their great successes. And the indigenous people that are the only actual socialists apparently in North America, because they're actually standing against the actual empires. And you're not revolutionary if you're not anti-imperialist and anti-racist and anti-sexist and all those things, not later. So continue to listen. Thank you for listening to this indigenous person. I know this is a hard one, so thank you for listening to this indigenous person. But continue to do that, because not only does all of the earth depend on it, I argue that in fact your life depends on it. Your well-being depends on it. Whether, because we can always, we're going to do this whether you like it or not, decolonization of the earth. But it couldn't hurt to have some support by people sabotaging their own Death Stars and Star Destroyers. You know what I'm saying? All right, the end.